called My Rage.
My fucking rage! Why you ain't shit all your time!
You know what I'm saying? Yes, that was Rest in Pieces from CBGB on a Sunday matinee. Don't that make a lot of sense? What's up, David? Get the funk out of my face. What do you say, buddy? Joe Frank, good to see everybody. Rue, how do you do? Good, good. What's up, George? Athens is watching. I guess we better bring our A game. Athens is watching. You know? Athens, Greece, my kind of town. You know? Hey, Whitney, how you doing? Come on, Whitney. I'm counting on your sense of humor today. You know? Here you go. Maurizio, Ciao Antidote t-shirt has arrived. Now I can't wait for the new album from Italy. End of the summer, brother. The new album is called Scarred. Go figure, right? Scotty Earth, what's up? And how's Jersey, bro? How's Jersey treating you, Scott from Silence Equals Death? You know, Vinny Doak, what's up? What's up? I'm looking good and happy. Well, I managed, I slept a little bit. Go figure, right? Actually friggin' slept, you know? But hey, what can I say? Hey, what can I say? This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, The Texas Silver Rush, Your Core Hardcore Fan Page, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos. We have a new sponsor today, and we're going to talk about them in a little while. And, of course, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards. Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, located in Lakewood, Colorado, is the Rocky Mountain headquarters for all things punk, hardcore, and metal. Established in 2014, they have the largest selection of records, CDs, shirts, stickers, patches, and accessories between Chicago and LA. From the pit to the ditch, they got your back. Get in touch with them, www.chainreactionrecords.com. Also, the Texas Silver Rush is a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as to style them for stage, album covers, promo photos, social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rollet, Ringo Starr, and of course, Agnostic Front. During this current pandemic, all information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram page, and of course, www.thetexassilverrush.com. I want to mention that where is let me find this. Next couple shows coming up. Don't be scared. If I can find it. Preparation is everything. Unless I'm not prepared. Where the hell did that go? All right. Maybe it's time. Its time has not yet come. What the hell? What has happened? All right. You know what? I cannot accept defeat. I must find this. Ah! Okay, victory for the wretched. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go up to my room. Here we go. Next up on the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. Couple of shows. Let's talk about them. Them. Here we go. This Wednesday is the New York Hardcore A7 Back to the New York Hardcore Roots Hardcore Compilation show. We're going to have a bunch of people that are on the compilation, on the show. Members from Kings Never Die, Crazy Eddie, blah, 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 blah. A week from today, also the pre-order link for the comp is going up tomorrow. I'll put that up next. A week from today, Roy Mayorga from Stone Sour, Soulfly, Ministry, Hell Yeah, Amoebics, and Nausea. A week after that, Bobby Steele from the Undead and previously of the Misfits. Arguably, some think the best Misfits stuff was with him on guitar. And then a week from Wednesday, Mr. Al Barr from the Dropkick Murphys and the Bruisers. So there's a couple of shows coming up. Feel free to tune in. What the hell did I do with all this stuff? You know? Tomorrow, boys and girls, big day tomorrow. Here it is. The pre-order link is going up for the A7 comp. Here it is. Boom. Mañana at 3 o'clock. There it is. It's red splatter vinyl. It comes with 17 bands. Comes with a 24-page zine. Busky designed it. It is Keeler. So don't be scared. Everybody should cop that. Go to the Dope Man and cop that. What's going on in the chat room? Everybody behaving? Yes, that is exciting. Astoria Lou, what's happening? One of your New York Ranger brothers is on the show today. We'll talk a little bit of New York Rangers. I got a picture of you and him that we'll go. Yes, Bobby Steele. That's right. We make our way to everybody sooner or later, you know? Paul Stone, Roy Mayorga is a fucking beast on drums. Great guy and great musician. Yeah, absolutely, brother. Larry Kelly, Happy Greek New Year, Astoria Lou. Is that right? Is it Greek New Year? That's cool. Shout out. Here comes our first shout out. Shout out to Upstate, Hudson Valley. Good. Oh, it's the Ukrainian Easter too. All right. Greek. Oh yeah. Okay. While I was reading all the jive, listen. All this is fine and dandy, but what's happening with this guy right here?
What's up?
What are you working today?
Overtime. West Side.
What happens after overtime?
After overtime?
Is there like another? I mean, in the film
is double time.
Okay, in the film business, I think it's called golden time.
That's even after that. That's like snowstorm material right there.
And then we also have some of the films that's called hazard duty.
Every day's a hazard.
Every day's a hazard when you're working on the railroad, right?
Exactly. But this is good. I'm at West. I'm in a different yard today, so and I snuck into the old supply room here so I can speak to you intimately.
Okay. I appreciate our intimate conversation. Here we go. How about photo of the day, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, let's have some fun. Let's wrong answers only, please. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Hardcore Shutterbug photo of the day. Boom. All right. Here we go. Wrong answers only, please. All right. Every day's Biohazard. Okay. Steven's going to get in trouble. Let's hope it. Is it Winger? Is it Tankard? That's a good one, Max the Threat.
This guy's digging.
Good call. Is it Spinal Tap? Is it The Sweet? Dokken. Right Said Fred. Heart. Good one. What was the Heart? What was the big Heart hit? These dreams are mine. These dreams. Yo, I saw Genesis is touring. Could you with Phil Collins?
Really?
Bro, I'd rather drink Drano than go see that.
You waiting for the Peter Gabriel reunion? Is that?
Bro,
Yeah.
Yo, big on my hate list next to Billy Joel is Phil Collins. I thought he has like Alzheimer's or dementia or something. And and he's also in some big divorce, so they're probably trotting him out there. He probably needs a couple bucks. You know? Collins is horrible live. I bet, man. Fuck that dude. Is it Hades? Is it Striper Without Makeup? Is it Kiss?
Striper Without the Stripes.
Faster Pussycat. Is it Hanson in 2021? Good one, Whitney. Yep. Here's a good one. All right. A friend of mine asked if I would go see Genesis. I asked, is a family member going to die if I don't go? Because still no. Now you sent me a couple of these, right?
Yeah.
No one says an unkind word about Phil Collins. Yeah, I do, bro. He sucks. How's that sound? Can't stand that shit. You know what? My take on it is, if I thought he sucked initially, he still sucks. And I hate that shit sucked back in the day. But everyone is so programmed from FM radio back then, where they would play like Phil Collins, like Studio, and that kind of shit. I hate that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't like that one either.
Come on, bro. Stop jocking Phil Collins.
There's two people arguing right outside this door. Hopefully you don't hear it.
Really? Arguing about what?
Good question.
What are you arguing about? Can't you see I'm with a customer?
Get
All right, here's another one. Boom. There you go.
Nice.
So, all right, here we go. Right answers only, please.
Give me some right answers now.
Now, okay, right answers. Is it? Let me put in a clue, because are these guys brothers?
You're good.
They are, right?
You're good. Yes, you are.
Okay. Is it? This is what I thought at first. I too thought it was Anvil. I did. I thought it was Anvil, but apparently is it Shitpile? Is it Raven? Is it Raven? Bob Riley knows. Is it Raven? Go ahead.
It is Raven, as a matter of fact. Shit pile. That's bad. That's just mean. This is Raven, and that is the Gallagher brothers.
Right.
Who, by the way, even with a translator, I could barely make out a word they said. They said, like, backstage. Their accents are so thick. And
where are they from?
I believe they're Scottish, I think.
Yeah.
This picture I took in 2018 at the Keep It True Festival in Königshofen, Germany.
Oh, wow.
And they were one of the headliners, along with
oh, here we go. From my hometown in Newcastle, UK.
There we go. Thank you. My bad.
Right.
This was an amazing show. In fact, Flotsam and Jetsam played, Exorder played, Hitman played, a band called Demon played. It was really amazing. One of those European festivals where you realize it's a religion over there.
Hey, man, I saw Manowar. Manowar in France. Actually, Rob, our guest today, I got to talk to him about that. That reminds me, I have that photo that when I bring our guest on. Yeah, we'll get into that later. The Manowar story is great because Biohazard played a festival with Manowar, and we were fucking bugging out. It was great.
Yeah, no.
Anyway,
it's a religion. these people take their metal deep to heart. And it, first of all, I did Germany in 2018 and Greece in 2019. And it was just, we were ready to go to Barcelona. I think we were supposed to do in 2020 before everything went south. But it was so, the German crowd, let me tell you, they drink with the best of them. And it was the most amazing. You know who else played? Grim Reaper played.
Oh, they love them over there.
You want to hear 4,000 people singing "See You in Hell, My Friend" at the top of their lungs.
Yeah, listen, European audiences are really.
It was so passionate, you couldn't help but love it. And these guys, I mean, this is a band that Metallica opened for on the Kill 'Em All for One tour, you know?
Yeah. Well, wasn't the what was the infamous L'Amour's? Was it Armored Saint, Metallica, and
Wasp?
Oh, okay. My bad.
Even at the show that Alago ran in and you know, it was Raven, Metallica, Anthrax.
Right, and there's that whole story that with Michael Alago, that initially he was going to see Raven play, and Metallica was on the bill. And I think initially he was invited to go see Raven. That was like the buzz. And he went to see Raven. Metallica was on the bill, and he got to speak to speak in Alago terms. He got up on the Metallica tip. Yep.
And the world.
Yep.
And Raven probably not too happy about that.
Here you go. Saw Raven support Girls School in 1982. They were awesome.
Oh,
Girls School was great too. I you know.
Girls School.
Lori Dawn, you saw that one at L'Amour's? All right.
Awesome.
Lori Dawn's an OG.
What's up, Lori? Lori, by the way, thank you. Thank you for the. Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Thank you for the gifts I got from Drew the last time I saw him. I never got to thank you, so thank you.
All right, bro. Let me keep it moving and grooving. Don't get into trouble over there. If you're around at the end, we'll bring you on.
You got it.
All right. Talk to you in a bit. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. It's alive. How about DTFM Vinyl Distro? It's a record store that specializes in underground music, punk, ska, hardcore, metal, and more. Located in the heart of Fargo, North Dakota's industrial district. Shop in person or online at www.dtfmvinyldistro.com, where the motto is "Death to False Metal." I think there's going to be some very metal undertones to today's shows. How about the Gutierrez brothers in Corpus Christi, Texas? Chacho's Tacos, located in Corpus Christi, Texas. Chacho's Tacos opened their doors in 2001. Home of the almighty Chacho's Taco. They cook up an incredible home-style Tex-Mex food, and this month they're celebrating their 20th anniversary. They've been supporting underground music since the beginning, and in their own words, we ain't stopping anytime soon. Touring bands that play Corpus Christi, swing by and get a home-cooked meal at Chacho's Tacos. We got you. The underground scene will never die. Please follow us on Facebook or on Instagram. All right. That said, you know what? Want to shout out Upstate Rick. New York Hardcore Chronicles Live comments crew. Rick is up at White Plains, in White Plains at the Burke Rehabilitation Center. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to visit him in a couple days. And I'll do an intro. We'll take some pictures. But we love you, Upstate Rick, and we hope you recover soon. And I am coming to see you. Get ready, White Plains. It's happening. Of course, want to shout out Lori Dawn and all the other gals and women of the pit. Thank you for your support. You gals rule. What else? We mentioned the A7 comp. That's it. You know what? Enough of me talking about me. Let's hear you talk about me. Let's bring our guest on. Yes, get well, Rick. Oh, they ain't ready. I know. It's good. Yeah. Bob Riley, bro. What's up? Yo, all the upstate dudes checking in. You know why? Because it's whenever we do this heavy metal stuff, the upstate guy, all the upstate, they come out. Ronnie James Dio is from upstate, right? What was the name, Riley? What was the name of Ronnie James Dio's doo-wop group? I know you showed me that CD. What was the name of that? That said, let's clear the deck. What the heck? Blah, blah. Here we go. Yada da la da dee. Shout out Sunday. Feel free to shout out. Shout it. Shouting out the evil Guidos. Oh boy. Oh, this is an interesting question. Is upstate hardcore New York hardcore? It's a very interesting question. Are bands from Syracuse and Buffalo New York hardcore? You would think so, you know. His doo-wop group was the Holy Jivers. Okay. Lenny, shout out to my wife. All right. Come on. The doo-wop Dios. Oh, what have I set off? What have I set off? All right, here we go. Here we go. Today's guest on this Shout Out Sunday. Today's guest is an American guitarist, songwriter, Halen from Corona, Queens, in New York City. He is best known for his work with Rest in Pieces, Straight Ahead, Biohazard, and Helmet. Please welcome, coming at us from the Garden State of New Jersey, our old friend, Rob Echeverria. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Drew. Hey. What's up, kid?
So here we are, huh?
Yeah, man. Love that first clip. I could smell that show right now. I could smell. Makes me want to grab a pitcher of water and share it with like 30 people.
Which show? Which show?
The CB's clip you played.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, oh, let's have a pitcher of water and everybody will drink out of the same pitcher. And I could smell that show and so many faces that were, you know, very cool.
And the Kohler brothers is sitting like right there.
He's right there. Jimmy G with the dousing of the beer on somebody's head. That was great.
You know, like back then, like you do a show and like your closest friends would surround you on stage and like,
you couldn't move.
Yeah, right.
And what I always laugh about that is like there I am with like a Marshall stack inside CB's.
Yeah.
Like, all right, maybe it was a little too much, but you know, maybe not.
Yeah. Well, right. It worked. Hey, listen, you know, CB's always sounded great. So if Tom Victor was doing sound, there would be no guitar in the PA because so much of it was coming off the stage, you know?
He's the only guy I know that would not complain about you playing at 120 decibels off the stage and wouldn't want you to turn down. You know, most sound men went crazy with that stuff.
Tom Victor was a great sound man, and Jerry Williams was great, but Tom was really, really good with the real heavy stuff, you know?
Yeah, awesome stuff.
You're getting a bit of a shout out for the Killer Van Halen shirt.
That's my man.
I'm still
going through all that stuff.
Rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen.
Absolutely.
Favorite Van Halen record?
Fair Warning, no doubt. Number one. That album.
You know, that's an interesting record. That was sort of because Diver Down was like a little odd. Lots of covers on it. You know, there was some great stuff on it. And of course, 1984 is 1984. But like Fair Warning, in a certain way, was the last great, gritty, grimy Van Halen.
And it was really dark. And I didn't even know drop D tuning back then, but he was most of the songs doing drop D tuning.
Is that right?
So the whole album's got this little dark, like really heavy, grudgy thing to it. And that's when he was like, you know, he went from E flat tuning to D flat tuning. Then he started playing with all these tunings further down, like on 1984 and all that stuff like that. But most of Fair Warning is in drop D, and it just sounds freaking incredible.
Wow, big response, big response about that. Don't you have a Eddie Van Halen-esque guitar?
I have. I just recently acquired, and I've been long looking for that, and it's hard to get nowadays because ever since he died, they're like hard to get, and like EVH doesn't even have any. They have them all on back order, so like I'm after the other two as well. So if anybody's listening. That's
a beautiful guitar, and correct me if I'm wrong. That guitar with that sort of layout, that's sort of like the Van Halen 2 guitar, isn't it?
That one came out, Van Halen. The Bumblebee's Van Halen 2. That was like 70. The black and white was the first one, then the Bumblebee, and then it progressed on from there. So
My
that was like coolest one.
My sister was a incredible, passionate Van Halen fanatic growing
Right.
up. Like her room was a shrine to Eddie Van Halen. So like peripherally, you know, I kind of I grew up around. My sister was like psycho Van Halen fan, you know. So
yeah, being that I live in Neptune now, I never put the two together. But my friend Danielle, who I have to shout out Sunday, Danielle.
Right.
I recognize her last name. I'm like, why do I know that name? Berardi. And it's like Kramer. He started Kramer. So Kramer was
right?
from New Jersey.
Is
has
this
stories about like Eddie Van Halen coming over and like
oh wow
house and you know, but like Kramer was a Neptune, New Jersey company, so it's pretty cool.
Is that right? Is Dimebag Darrell buried with the original guitar? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. In a Kiss coffin. He's in a Kiss coffin with the original Bumblebee.
Man, that was horrible, man.
Yeah,
I mean, beyond horrible, right? I mean, you played shows with Dime, right?
Well, yeah, that was, you know, some of my best highlights of my career were that Pantera tour.
Yeah,
you know? And I always think about him, but like, there's a couple of things to that, because when he passed away, what year was that? I forgot. But anyway, I was off the grid at that point.
Yeah.
So when I actually woke up in the morning and I saw it on TV, and then had nobody to call. Because I burned every bridge. I was off the grid. I'm like, this sucks. This totally sucks. And then it made me think about it. And my biggest regret with Dimebag, I don't know if you know about this, but like when we toured Australia, like, and the typical guitar player thing is like the cattiness, you know, the cattiness. We're like bad girls, you know, like mean girls. You know? And so we got really catty with each other over like guitar playing and stuff. And one time we played at a bar after show.
Wow.
And I never forget, like some bar band was playing, Billy, Danny, myself, and Dimebag jumped up and we started playing ZZ Top covers, right? So we're playing ZZ Top and I go over and I turn my amp, because I'm deaf as hell in my left ear. So I'm trying to hear. So I turn my amp up, crank it up. The next time I saw them, yo, man, turn it up higher than me. And like ever since that, it was like I was on the shit list for like, you know, I was like, but I couldn't hear. And ever since then, we had like this really like bad guitar player relationship. And then all that stuff happened. So it was kind of like a sore note, you know, it kind of sucked.
Yeah, things like that happen.
Hey, but man, that we had some fun on that. I know that was a second tour with them for Biohazard. For me, that was the first time around with those guys, and most of the highlights are from that because he was just a character, man.
Yeah, I was out with you guys for a bunch of shows, and they were really on top of the world then, man. They were number one.
Somebody, I know I have a copy, but somebody has all the original footage. We filmed every show, so everything that went on, we filmed. And I'll never forget.
I have a bunch of the stuff. I have it.
Well, there was one show that we played with them. It was like at some theater, right? And remember in the old days, they had the theaters where like you could slide out palm trees, you could change the scenery. It was on
right.
So the pranksters at Biohazard we were all just hanging out in the back, and all of a sudden, you know, they're playing heavy, doing their Pantera thing, and out of the side, these palm trees come up. We start changing the scenery in the background.
That's great. That's
when he had his revenge, and he hired that marching band to come up on stage in Lubbock, Texas. He hires a marching band, and then he bought every single plastic ball that you could buy in Walmart, and there were like hundreds of them on the stage, along with a high school marching band that he decided to hire to get us back. I mean, he was a character. It was absolutely hilarious.
I do remember being in Dallas because Vinny, his brother, had that strip club. And like, I remember like, you know, pulling the bus up and like, what was the name of his strip? It was like, not Crazy Girls. It was,
no.
Yeah. But I remember, boy, that was,
right. The something, I forgot. It
was a great destination for us in Dallas. And anyway, boy, we sort of went off on a tangent. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's all right.
Let's talk about how you came up and how music came into your life. Did you grow up in a musical household?
I did. Luckily, I mean, it was pretty diverse. I mean, there's pictures of me as a kid. I mean, I want to say straight out of the womb, I was like into music. Like I'm either banging on a drum. Technically, I wanted to be a drummer first. I always wanted to be a drummer. Got a drum set when I was young, but in typical Queens fashion, every time you hit the drums, it was like, shut up. So that went out pretty quick, and I wound up picking up. My sister had a guitar laying around the house. I'm rushing through this whole story, but yeah. So my sister had a guitar in the house. I picked that up, and I started like doodling around with that, and then one thing would lead to another. But yeah, that's like me wanting to be Eddie Van Halen days. You know, back in the day, that's probably like 1980. Oof.
3. It says 83 on it.
Yeah, 83, something like that. Yeah, with my copy V, my KK Downing copy V from Judas Priest.
Nice.
My leather jacket with all my buttons on the collars, which I still have those buttons. Probably like an anvil button and a maiden button and stuff like that. And
and Ryan says with the Eddie haircut as well. You have the Eddie Van Halen haircut going as well.
Yeah, Richie Sip's backyard. That's where that was taken.
Is that right?
Yeah. Right. We used to go out in the back and like fake play and like, you know, take pictures and whatnot.
That's awesome. Who were your early guitar influences? Like what resonated for you early on?
Ace Frehley. So you're not a big Kiss fan, I understand, right? You're not.
Well, I'm a Kiss appreciator.
Right.
I just didn't like a lot of you guys. I didn't get channeled down that path. You know, I sort of circled back much later. They weren't a part of my teenage years.
My brother hated. My sisters thought I was crazy, but I was yes. I had the whole Kiss. But of course, I wanted to be a drummer. So every time I dressed up like Peter Criss, then I started getting into guitar, and then I got into Ace, and then that would lead into like the Queens had that WPLJ. Remember the 95.5 WPLJ? So that was huge for us. The solo from Dr. Love. The solo from Dr. Love kind of got me into like, whoa, that's pretty cool. But then with that radio station, you know, you had Zeppelin, you had Sabbath, you had all that good stuff. So that was kind of like the go-to station, and that kind of what started, you know, the whole like rock thing. So I was like the rock button boy back when I was a little kid, you know. Mm-hmm. And then that would start my obsession with and every kid learns Smoke on the Water. So then I started like digging Richie Blackmore. And then the Greatest Hits cover was like the coolest thing I ever saw, with like the Strat that's like shooting out sparks.
Sure. So what was that? That was Van Halen. That was
Deep Purple's Deepest Purple was the.
I want to find that.
Yeah. Deepest Purple. It was like the Deep Purple Greatest Hits, and I thought that was a cool, like, you know, the Strat is like sparking and all that stuff. So I always liked Strat. Mm-hmm. And so then I started practicing a little bit more on Richie Blackmore and stuff like that. But a lot of it had to do with like the kids I was growing up with, because everybody wanted to play. So we had like neighborhood legends, like guys that were like, oh wait, that's the dude who can play like Eruption. Oh wait, that's the dude who's like, you know. And there was this one kid, Ralph Perez, I never forget him. And he was basically taught me how to listen to a record, and he was great at like listening to a record and playing a guitar and picking it out and playing whatever he heard. So I said, yeah, there it is. So I started doing that, like, hey, I could do that too. And then I started learning like all the Deep Purple stuff. I started learning all the Sabbath stuff, and I started teaching myself how to play these things.
That's a good trait to have, man. You know,
I'm really happy with it, man, because I tried lessons. You know, I thought about school, I did it, but I just hated it. I tried taking lessons, and I wound up going to the guy with like the first Iron Maiden cassette, be like, I want to play this. I don't want to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. I want to play that. Yeah. And then I went straight into like playing metal stuff, you know, because it was always like the Guitar Hero thing was huge. You know, back then everyone was all about being a guitar guy, you know. Did
the new wave of British heavy metal speak to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's where we found Maiden and Saxon and all that stuff. And that would come to us by one of our friends, Eddie. We called him Heavy Metal Eddie. He had this hobby of just like, well, we're in Queens, but like our record store was Slip Disc Records in Valley Stream, Long Island, which is quite a bit of ways, you know.
Sure.
But he would find
Flip Disc?
Flip Disc, yeah. And he was the only guy that could go out there, and he would go and say, well, what we would call taking a risk, which was basically when you just look at an album cover and be like, these guys look pretty cool. I'll take a risk. I'll buy it and I'll take it home. You know, so he wound up doing that with the Venom records. He wound up doing that with like all these like British heavy metal stuff, all the darker stuff, all the black metal stuff. Yeah, it was a great store. I mean, that's where, you know, I got my Jump in the Fire 12-inch signed by all the Metallica guys at the Rio Theater show. It was right there. So much love for Slip Disc, even though I haven't been there.
I'm a Manhattan guy. You know, I never got out there, but I've seen so much like in-store signings and like that. This was like ground zero for that stuff.
Yeah, that was my first in-store experience. Like, you know, lining up for Metallica and then like, you know, watching and meeting them and signing the records. Like that was pretty cool. Like never did that before. So that was
hold on, let me shout out Chrissy Cromag out there in Long Island.
Chrissy.
And also, I saw another one that I wanted to.
Juan, my man Juan.
Yeah, is that who? Is that? Yeah, here you go. Your people in Costa Rica shouting you out hard, Rob.
There you go.
Yep.
Pura vida, man. Pura vida, man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was all metal when we were kids, you know, for me and like guys like Richie, and then like, but then that would lead into like the Motorhead thing, and that would escalate more into, you know.
So do I understand this right, that you and Richie Sipp, who later ended up in Sick, of course, playing bass in Sick of It All, you guys had a cover band, and you put an ad in the paper, and that's how you met Craig Setari?
Oh, we met Craig, yeah. We basically, we were like, and I joke around, we were like the first Slayer Metallica cover band. Like the second the record would come out, I would go home and learn it.
Wow.
And then I would show Richie his parts, and then we would get this kid Eddie and whoever we could find for drums. At the time we had this guy Pete. And then we would go to Roxy Studios or whatever studio.
Oh wow. You're pulling cards now, Roxy Studios.
And we would play these records, man.
Right, that's awesome.
And guys would come and just watch us play, like the first Slayer record, the first, you know, Metallica record. And then we needed a bass player. And then in the music paper, Richie and I put an ad. And then comes along this skinny kid with a big ass bass case and his hair, you know, just coming in. And it was
wow. I can't picture that.
Oh my God, I wish I had pictured that. And that's how we met him, but we didn't know he was all tied up to everybody else that would sooner or later we would all hang out and meet. And, you know, it was a very, back then it was a big world, but a very small group because everybody knew each other.
Yeah,
you know, that would lead to like, you know, Pete and Luke. So Mike Sankiewicz, like the whole, you know, when I knew I was going to come on the show, I started doing like my story of my life, and you really start to find like the key people in your life, you know. And it's funny because I went to Aviation High School, and all the Astoria guys went to Aviation High School, so that's where I met Joe.
Like didn't Freddie Alba go to Aviation?
He did. But I knew Joe, Matty, Ernie Parada gave me like the Gilligan's Revenge top. And they knew I was a metal kid, but they were the first ones that really tried to get me to go to CDs. They really tried to get me to go, you know. And this was like 1981, 82. So all the Astoria guys, I knew them from Aviation. And then I wound up leaving and going to my high school in Flushing, which is basically John Bowne High School, where I would meet Mike Sankiewicz. And Mike introduced me to Armand, Lou, Pete, and all those guys. And then next thing you know, that circle starts to go to CBGBs, and the whole thing starts to turn, and it all came together, and in a funny life kind of way, you know.
Got to shout out Hoya Rock watching the show. Corona all day,
baby. Yeah, I knew you were a baby, Hoya. Remember?
Is that right?
Yeah, totally. I was friends with his big brother. His big brother, actually, Big Dave. We went to grade school together, man. I mean, I knew. He used to call me Button. Rock? He's the one who called me Rock Boy because I would show up with like kiss buttons all the way down my jacket.
That's awesome.
And I had the proof because he actually signed my, like, you know, the little autograph books that they give you at like 5th grade when you graduate. And he signed it, yo, Rock Boy or Button Boy, like that. And it was like Big Dave. And then later on, you know, so I knew Hoya when he was a little kid and stuff. So it was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, you know, I really we're talking about we're gonna do a mashup show New York Hardcore Chronicles Live Smoking Word podcast. We're trying to figure out what it's going to look like because I really enjoy working with Hoya, in this forum. I really do. I really
awesome.
enjoy it. Yeah. Oh, hi, Robert. Nice to see you. Here is my dad.
It's my aunt. Hi. Hello. The family's here, so I got to watch out.
Don't worry. I'm actually not supposed to curse much anymore on the show because it's kids.
I know. I saw that post and I was like, oh, I got to remember because like Laverne and Shirley, my mouth is like a sewer.
So tell me, I've always sort of been a little vague on this. Did Straight Ahead come first or did Rest in Pieces?
Straight Ahead came first. So when we started to go to CB's, I met Tommy, and they had Mayhem, New York City Mayhem coming on. So they had the whole Mayhem thing going on, and then I kind of replaced. I'm like the replacement dude. That's my job. I'm like Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction. You got a problem? I'll come fix it. I just happen to carry a guitar. So like you're like
the Mr. Wolf. You're the Mr. Wolf.
Like, all right, you need help? Okay, I'm here. I'll clean up your mess and then I'm not gonna move.
Yeah.
So so Gordon was out and I was in, and then Mayhem became Straight Ahead, and then we made that little 7-inch. And yeah, I mean that whole thing was pretty crazy. I have vague memories of the 7-inch, except that I played in like a little pig nose amp and a microphone. Like I had no equipment, so it was just like the worst guitar sound you could possibly get, which was like the dirtiest, nastiest sound, and basically
pig nose
was. Look at it, Tommy's a madman. So those are great days, man.
Now, so let me set the table. So you end up you're thrown into the breach with Straight Ahead. Next thing you know, you're playing CBGB's matinees. It's utter chaos, right? And I mean.
Well, it didn't start. Yeah, but we started. Our first gig was in February. It was in Long Island. And I'll never forget being a total nervous wreck in this bar called February's. And that was our first gig. And then there's footage of like the early Straight Ahead shows where there's like 2 people there, and then all of a sudden it just blew up after that 7-inch, and it was great stuff. It was a very unique. What I love about that band is it's the totally unique style of like. Of how that all came together. I mean, the speed of it, it was just a unique vibe. I mean, totally. You talk about a metal guitar player, you go into that, it's like it's not metal at all, but it's fast because that's all we were looking for then. Because metal started going down the tubes. Metal was like going, stadiums and whatnot. And so for us, me personally, was like, all right, how much underground can you go? And that's when you kept looking for that stuff, and then you wound up like getting into DRI. And I think all of us were really into like DRI, the first DRI record or whatever. And then so that was like the fastest thing we ever heard. And that's what we wanted to do, like speed stuff.
Anthony Civarelli, Civ, in the New York Hardcore Chronicles film says like back then, when you're a teenager, like 1 month was like felt like 6 months. Time. Right.
It's like One week later, you have like 500 people at your show. Like after you just played for like 2, it was weird,
This flyer, this is the oldest flyer I have in the archive with Straight Ahead on it. It's dated June 21st, 1986. So wow, you guys were really out there. I didn't realize you guys were out there that early. Here, this is from 1986. In Club Hell. Where was Club Hell? Don't know where this was.
Was that?
It says Jersey. I think it's Jersey. We went through this. I think it's Jersey. Saturday, June 1st, 1986. Look at this lineup.
Mental abuse. Look at that. That's awesome.
Ultraviolet, Straight Ahead, Sheer Terror.
That's great.
Yep. So you guys got out there really early.
I mean, it was right out of high school. I graduated in 85, cut off all my hair. Yeah, I mean, and then literally by that summer, I think we were like started playing, and then I think I have one of those flyers, and
the pyramid.
The pyramid, but like I know the very first show was February's, and then I don't know what the very first CB's was, and all that stuff's kind of a blur. Like I was telling you before, it's like I don't know how people do it. Like they remember every single thing about every little show, Meanwhile, I can't tell you anything about any of it because I'm just like, I don't know. If the flyer says it happened because I have no idea.
I know Brian Baker was on the show and he remembers like crazy stuff.
What we had catering and whatever, well, not even catering, but what I had for lunch and this and that, and
was Straight Ahead a straight edge band?
No, I think Tommy wanted it to be. I think Tommy and Craig were kind of more into that. Me and Armin were not at all, So it didn't create anything. It was just kind of like for us, for the guys who were not, I think it was just more about positive attitude. It was more on the PMA thing, like straight ahead, just focus and stay positive. For Tommy and Craig, I think it was a lot more the straight edge thing and stuff like that. But not for me.
Yeah. I always sort of I know Craig and Tommy. I didn't know how hard as a band you waved the straight edge flag.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, if they wanted to, we kind of, I had no problem with it. But if I didn't, they didn't have a problem with it. I mean, it was
and the straight edge single was Breakaway. Is that what it was called?
The first 12-inch was Breakaway, the EP. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. And then how does Rest in Pieces come into play?
So when Tommy, because on the first 7-inch, Tommy was playing drums and singing, which obviously is hard to do when you're in a band like that. So looking for a drummer, Armand just fell into that spot. And then he was singing, playing guitar for Pieces at that point and kind of just doing double duty. But then he got tired of playing and singing, so then he asked me to play guitar, and then I wound up going, that way. And it was kind of weird. So, it's all that little tight circle of like, all right, we're going to play here. And then as one band, and sometimes we even played together. Yeah. So we had to do like double shows and stuff like that. But, and then the first, what was the first Pieces release? That was My Rage, right? Well, the first LP, was My Rage. And that was with Josh and Al, myself and Armand. Hold on. Did this come out first? I'm sorry. I was always a little confused about how chronologically this stuff laid out. Did this come out first? Yeah, so that's a 7-inch when Armand is playing. Actually, Armand's not even singing. So Armand's playing guitar. Rob Calhoun is on vocals. Wow. Josh and I were in the band. And then after that, Armand takes over on vocals and guitar. So now they're a 3-piece. And then I come in. Now we're back to being a 4-piece. And then Josh is out. Then we wind up getting Craig in the band. Now we have everything moving into the Under My Skin LP, which I'm happy people love. What's up, Billy Page? Crap Storm. Yeah, huh? I saw that. They're coming out of the woodwork. What's up, dude? I got another CBGB shot here. Hold on. This is a Rest in Pieces CBGB shot with you and Craig. Yeah. What's that? A BC Rich? What's that? A BC Rich you're playing? That was my BC Rich. Yeah, I'm playing that, and that was like I was proud of that because that was like my first like advanced guitar. Like, we got to deal with Roadrunner. I'm gonna go buy a guitar. I was like, I got money, and I went and bought that guitar. Nice. And that's like Cameron. That's Armand's brother, right next to me. Oh wow. Yeah, that's Cameron. There's Arthur, right? And it's Steve Martin, right? Oh, at the end. Pete, right in front of me. Squirm. Oh wow. Wow, I didn't even notice all that. Yeah, look at that. You could tell Pete from the haircut. Pete's haircut gives him away, right? Yeah, it just never changes. You got Marie in the back there. Again, that Marshall stack. Wow. And look, I still have that amp to this day. It's still there. Wow. Man. That's still my baby. Wow. Is that behind you there? Yeah, that's it right here. And has it still brand new. Take good care of it. 1987 Marshall 2210. Yeah. You're one of those guys that takes care of shit. I do. I'm really bad like that. People think I have a weird relationship with things, with material things. But it's like, no, you spend what it took me to buy that in 1987? Right. Like when I was a kid, like I didn't have money for any of this stuff. So for me to buy that, of course I'm going to take care of it. I just spent put it on layaway, and like 8 months later, you finally get it, Is this the original lineup? That's Well, the original lineup with me in it. Yeah.
And the dude next to you, that's he was
Josh,
singing.
bass player, then Armand, and then Al is the drummer on there. Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, I'm straight on it.
Rocking the gold chain.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Rocking my cable knit sweater.
Wait, I'm going through my.
I'm always about it. You gotta have some kind of fashion, a little bit, you know.
Yeah, for sure. How do you feel about? We'll get to. I know how you feel about the final Rest in Pieces release, but what are your thoughts on My Rage?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I mean, again, in hindsight, could you go back and do things differently? Absolutely, you know. But Pieces will always have the tightest hold on my heart because I love that band. That band to me would have been. It's one of those could have been a contender moments, you know, like. Armand's writing to this day, I love his songwriting ability. Because when you think about how old we were back then, and kind of you see the progression from the songs that weren't on the 7-inch, but and prior to the LP, to My Rage, there were other songs, but you could see the progression of his writing. And the one thing I love about Pieces is that when you put it on, even on the later record, which I'm not a fan of, the influences were there, but it was still Pieces. It was undeniably Rest in Pieces, but you could point out like Rose Tattoo, you could point out Exploited, you could point out Skinner, you could point out like all these little bits and stuff that he was so good at, like having these little flavors of like of music that was inspiring to us come out. And on the last record, I mean, we had like Al Di Meola bits. I mean, I was getting more into like fusion and stuff like that. But Armand had a way of really like throwing in a little bit of sweet, a little bit of, you know, punk, a little bit of oi kind of thing to it, a little bit of metal, you know, and it just had a great, great vibe to it. And to use Scully's words, is like, we're all cut from the same cloth, kid. Like, the three of us are cut from the same cloth, and which we are, because we could go. And it was 20 years before like the Pieces reunion, right? I haven't seen these guys in forever, and it's just like instantly like it's all good, you know, because like I could play with Craig any time of day. You know
what? Let's take a peek at that. Awesome.
And it's just a fun band. It's like rock and roll, metal, punk, and it just always had this space in my heart that was like, oh, I can't wait. One day I'm on my deathbed. I'm like, Pieces has to play one more show, and it came true. So I was so happy. And to have Danny was like, I couldn't ask for anything better. I mean, it was so much fun to play with him. And the funny thing with that was, like, after the breakup with Biohazard, I haven't seen Danny, that was 1999. So whenever that reunion was, so we're talking some years. Yeah, we're talking some years. So I get a phone call from Armand, like, so would you be okay if we asked Danny to play drums? I'm like, yeah, why not? I had no beef. But it was always that kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I said yeah to that. And then we needed to rehearse. So we're both out in Jersey. I didn't even realize how close to me Danny was. So we're out in Jersey, and those guys are out, in their place or whatever. So we need to find a place to rehearse. So then Danny spoke, and then we found a place in Jersey. And then as I go to bring my gear into the place, opens the door, and boom, there's Danny. Like, that's the first, like, I literally walk into Danny, and he just looks at me and goes, "We good?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're good." That was it.
Hey, I want to shout out the Kohler brothers who are watching.
Absolutely.
Pete, yeah.
You. Big you.
Yep. Lou. Where did I see Lou? I know I saw Lou in here somewhere.
Lou was talking about the groove the groove of the song, which is awesome. Good to see
you. Here we go. There he is.
Good to hear
you.
Hey,
Lou. Hey, Pete. Thanks for coming by.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, you love these guys. I mean, you grew up with these guys, Yeah,
man. It's like, it's just like when I go to see these guys, or if I do see it, it's not like I don't want to be Rob from Helmet, or I don't want to see Lou from Sick of It All. So I want to see Lou and Pete. I want to see Lou. I want to. These are the guys. You know what I mean? So we had some great times growing up, man. It's like really good stuff.
Yeah. So did the Free for All comp happen before the second Rest in Pieces recording?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that's too. I think so too, because that's
so. Let's address this, because this is a big tie-in to what happens later. But the Free for All comp, which a lot of people friggin' love that comp.
I'm probably more proud of that than I am of the actual second record. But
tell us about this comp, why you're proud of it, and your guitar sound and how that played out.
I just think the hardest thing with Pieces was capturing the power of Pieces, because Pieces, I wanted to have a brutal guitar sound. It was a guitar-driven band, and it really wanted, a great sound. So that Marshall stack was there for a reason. It was just meant to bring down the house, But you can never capture that on any kind of recording. Every time I went to record something, it always sounded like crap. That managed to capture what Pieces was like live, and it came out really well. And then my understanding was that John Stanier heard that, and later would make the connection that was me, and that would get me the Helmet gig. Through Steve Martin, Nasty Little Man, being that's a shout out kind of day today. That was the whole thing, was that, Steve Martin was their publicist. He kind of knew about, me, obviously, with Pieces and all that stuff and guitar playing. He kind of put it out to Paige and those guys that, you should give this guy a shot,
Absolutely. Hey, whoa, that's you, bro, out there in the country. That ain't me. Yeah. So let's not go back, but I know the Under My Skin, the Pieces record that came out on Road Racer is kind of a burr under your saddle. For those for the uninitiated, explain to us kind of what happened with that record and how it's not one of your favorites.
I mean, songwriting, I think that the songs themselves are fantastic, right? Because you could sense that the band was going somewhere different musically. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was like clean parts now. There was like slide guitar parts. There was all, almost some great stuff to like, really change things up a little bit. But then we had the whole problem with Al kind of forgetting how to play, and Armand last minute had to learn how to, play the parts on drums. So it came out rather stiff. And then running out of time in the studio, and the record label not allowing us to fix that. Whereas where the hatred for the record label came because it was like, oh, this is it. It's going to come out this way. They wouldn't give us any more money to fix anything. So they just was like, all right, that's what the way it is, and that's the way it's going to go out. You know, and we had our own little, squabbles about how the vocals should be done or this or that, and and then the whole thing just came out so bad. I'm so glad there are people like Rat Bones and Mike Collimer who love that record. He's always tagging me in like the under my skin posts. But
Rat Bones loves that record.
Yeah, Rat Bones loves that.
Is that right, Rat Bones?
I've been sitting here and I've been really going crazy, man, because I gotta say, when that record came out, let me tell a quick story. I won't waste a lot of time.
Famous
on the run. Look, in 1980.
Go ahead. You're on the clock.
Real quick. Rob, I love you, man. I gotta say, when I saw Rob too, like I came from the heavy metal background, like we all did too. But like when I seen Rest in Pieces, that power of the stack, just Rob was like the cool kid in high school that I couldn't sit at their table yet. I was so, I knew what it was. When I moved to Detroit the second time, I was kind of on the lam from New York. I had some heavy shit go on, but I wound up joining a carnival in '91, and I had my own sound system because the guy liked me so much. I ran the Sizzler, and during the day, this record just came out, and I used to bump this all day long during the day. This Talking Blues records, great Bob Marley shit. But then at night, when it would turn to nighttime, the other rides were rocking like Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and like whack-ass regular pop shit. And my intro to the nighttime every night was the Under My Skin, bro. I mean, this record, we got man. I gotta say it to me right now. I want to put it in context properly so I just don't sound crazy. It's kind of like your physical graffiti. Even the cover,
right?
it's got that from the first note to the last song. It just punches you right in your gut. And if you're into that world and that's what you believe, I was living that in Detroit, living in cracked out, burned out buildings and hanging.
Yeah, that was a shot in the Bronx. We took that picture in the Bronx, and then we had Pusshead do the cover, which I thought was fantastic.
I mean, maybe I got it. You know what I mean? I really felt the lyrics were so heavy. I mean, look at it. I don't want to turn into the whole Hooked Up, No Man's Land. Like, it sounded like every band you ever loved, all in your favorite hardcore band. It was heavy enough. It punched you, but it still had those melodic things we loved about where we all come from, that metal and that rock and roll that we grew up with.
That's the Armand thing. Armand had a great way of adding melody to that hardness, It was like he had a great way of doing it. And so the songs, I love the songs, man. I got no problem. But the production of it. So now I'm not on my deathbed wishing we had another show because we kind of did that. Now I want to redo that record.
Hey, Brendan White asks, who came up with the idea of using slide guitar, you or Armand?
Well, Armand wrote that little bit because we were at that moment we were heavily into Rose Tattoo. I think at that time we were definitely digging the whole like Rose Tattoo first record, and then he came up with this little slide ditty, and then we wound up doing that, But
makes sense.
So that's that.
All right, Rat Bones.
Yeah, and I gotta say the cover, the Montrose cover, I got the fire. I mean, just the way that record ends, it's just so badass, So one of my all-time favorite records, absolutely.
See you in a bit, Rat Bones.
See you in a second.
Shouting out Michael Gibbons from Leeway.
Yo,
Divided, best riff in New York hardcore.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. So it's interesting, and I can relate to it somewhat.
Right.
In the regards of the Antidote record, Return to Burn, which has been pretty much uniformly vilified because we were going in like a rock direction. It's sort of like a rock record. At that point, we were more influenced by Guns N' Roses, than some of the old hardcore stuff. And yet, what's great is to this day, I'll have people reach out and go, I love that record. That record, I love that record. And it's cool, like, wow, it's kind of nice that there's.
Yeah. I'm not going to try to let people not like it,
There's a couple of them out there. So let me shout out some sponsors and take care of some biz, and we'll come back and let's talk about Helmet. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. You asked for it, you got it. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and we are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics, The Organic Grill, the Texas Silver Rush, Chain Reaction Records and Skateboards, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Chacho's Tacos, and I want to introduce to you a new sponsor. Our newest sponsor is Generation Records. Generation Records, since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as T-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. The merchandise. You got the merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia, and I can testify to that because I just emptied my sister's attic out of all my CDs and all my crap and just brought it to Market Generation. Was like, yo, take this shit, give me whatever. And they gave me a fair price. Like, I don't want nothing in this life. I want to live in a white room with a toothbrush. So I don't need 3 boxes of friggin' CDs. I don't need that. It stresses me out. Material possessions stress me out. I don't want it. Leave me alone. Don't give me anything. Fucking bands give me all your T-shirts and shit. And I feel bad and I take it. I don't want it. Don't give me anything. I'm just kidding. I appreciate it all. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia, and they will pay you top dollar for them. House calls are made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email Generation Records at gmail.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram. That's Generation Records, our new sponsor. We're very happy to have Mark and Generations. Get off of my lawn. There you go. Generation Records is a must whenever I hit New York City. Absolutely. Generation Records, yes, yep. Except the vocals. Sorry. There you go. Get off my lawn. I want to mention a couple of things. I want to mention that there is a Patreon page. You know, a bunch of people have come on board in the past couple days. And we lose people, we gain people. And I understand there's an ebb and a flow to this. There's people that came on board very early in the beginning, and we're over a year into it. Some people kind of wander off, they wander into traffic. Other new people, come aboard. I want to shout out a couple of new patrons. Jason Redding, Sean Cringe McNally, Susan Antonson, Federico Danielle Nogara, Giordano, a.k.a. Clint Eastwood, Deborah Kane, David Jaggi, No Redeeming Social Value, Mikey X, Sachin Agrawal, and Mary Ohm. Thank you all for supporting the show, and thanks everybody. There it is. Please, support this friggin' show, will you? It's what enables me to do this. As you can see, I put a lot of work into this, and I love doing it. And thank you for giving me that opportunity. There's the Patreon page. There's a PayPal page as well, a PayPal address if the whole Patreon thing is too much for you to wrap your head around. If you're watching this in rerun, there is a subscription button there. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Please subscribe to the show so you get alerts. And there's also a little merch line, literally a line underneath the show. There is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live merch. There's some Antidote NYHC merch. And there is the Do Good Things and Good Things Come to You line. There's all kinds of cool stuff. There's the New York Hardcore logo mug. There's the New York Hardcore logo shower curtain. And there's the New York Hardcore pillow that you can prop your girl's ass up on. So what more could you ask for in this life? Yo, I got to shout out Mark Tulch. Yo, you've been a supporter since the beginning, dude. And thank you so much. How about some shout outs? Shout out to Dave Street and my boy Q. Okay, there you go. What else? Shout out. Where did I see a couple of shout outs? I won't send the Drew Stone care package then, bro. LOL. You know what happens to a lot of the stuff that you know what happens to a lot of the stuff that I end up getting? I can't. Yo, I'm wearing the chain. You know who ends up with it? This guy right here.
It's to me. Bring it all over. I'm really itching for Wednesday. I got some. Dickhead.
There you go. So listen, if you send me stuff and you give me stuff, I wear it once or twice, whatever. It filters down to Rap Bones, and then it has a vibrant life in the world of Rap Bones. It gets worn all the time, and it ends up making its way, down the line. So please keep sending me stuff. Shout out to the great show on Friday. That was awesome. Okay. Chris Corkum, shout out to my Shelty Bo. Is that how do you pronounce that? Bo, whose birthday is about a week from now. We're shouting out. It's a dog shout out. Okay. There you go. Everything else. Okay, cool. There is a super chat feature that we have on the show. It's been used a lot lately, and I appreciate it. It comes up in color. I can't miss it. If you have a question, it's also a great way to support the show. If you got a question, it comes up in the chat room. I can't miss it. And even if I do miss it once in a while, people say, yo, there's a super chat there. So do a super chat for a couple bucks and ask a question, and we'll get it. We'll get it to Rob. That said, let me make sure I covered everything. Also, a couple Patreon people, Scott Gajawitzki, Mark Tolch, Raymond Hogan, and Ira Kogan. Thanks for coming back, Ira. And I know you supported the show in the beginning, and then you wandered off. Glad you are back. I think that's everything. Let's bring Rob back on. Hey, man.
I had to change.
Oh, that was well done.
I like that, right? Right, boom.
You got
best design ever. The Pieces show from the Pieces.
Is that what that is? The Rest in Pieces show?
Yeah. That's the famous shot from him, the Brian Burson shot of him of Rat Bones over Armand. Great shirt.
That's cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. Let's see. So let's do this. Let me clear the deck here. Let's play a little clip. Let's like start off this question with a little clip, and then we'll ask about it. Here we go.
Right.
Boom. So, how did this come about?
How who would have thought Jon Stewart, right, on the FX network?
That must have been fun.
Stewart show, right?
That must have been fun.
So somehow we get on the Jon. Apparently, he was a big fan. Invited us on the show. The show was on FX. It was a Jon Stewart show, and we taped it in New York. We did that. That was Rollo. That would I believe that's Rollo. Yeah, and then we did.
Yeah,
Milk.
It was Rollo. It was.
But good stuff. Yeah.
So let me. I lifted this from another interview, and I love this because we already talked about how your guitar sound on the Free for All comp kind of put you on their radar screen, and that Steve Martin lined it up. And I'd love to get Steve Martin on the show at some point. And I'm quoting you here. I had no idea Helmet played in drop D tuning. So there I am playing the songs in standard tuning and pulling it off. If you play guitar, you'd understand that that's some fast chord changes. My straight ahead experience paid off. I came back the next day and had all the tunes down in drop D. I was happy. Paige was baffled. I got the gig.
That's pretty, because I had no idea. So I think I tuned the guitar all the way down to D. And then I started playing. So I show up in the audition, and here I am. I bring my amp, my Pieces amp, right? I bring that to Mott Street, the rehearsal space in Mott Street. And my brother-in-law built a case for that thing that weighed about 100 and something pounds. Well, here I am with a homemade road case going down to Mott Street with a guitar strapped on my back. And then I get down there and we start playing. But then, and I see Paige like, something's not right. Because we're going through the whole Meantime record. Because I went home, I learned it, and I think I can play it. But something's not clicking. And especially on some songs, there's like suspended chords that you don't hear with regular. So some notes are missing. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what? And we found out that I was playing in D, but I wasn't playing in drop D. So I was missing those chords. So I had to go back home, do my homework, come back the next day. And they were like, all right, you got the gig. I'm like, cool. All right.
Wow, that must have been exciting.
Yeah, it was great. Now that whole time was kind of, because I was basically in 91 was when Pieces was done. So I went back to school. I got myself a job. I'm thinking like I'm done. I'm off the map, And so this is like late 92, early 93, where Armand and Duck, my friend John, aka Duck, are in a car listening to the Helmet cassette of Meantime. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So
that was great. Yeah, that was a powerful record at the time.
Yeah, man. So I'm in there like I'm all in on this, and who is it? Yeah. So that became like my favorite cassette. And I had no idea that Steve was, their publicist or whatever like that. But then what happened was that we went to go see them play at Roseland. And my exact words to Steve were like, I should be in this band. Like I was just joking around, like, yeah, they're great, but I should be in this band. Like that's how I really enjoyed that band. And I literally said to Steve. And then I don't know how much time went after that, but I got a call from Steve. Remember what you were saying at the Roseland show? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, they're looking for a guitar player. And he's like, and I was like, are you interested? And he's like, yeah, of course. And then I'm at that point, I'm at my mom's and dad's place in Long Island, going to school, went back to college, going to school and working for UPS. And then I get a call from Paige Hamilton. I answer the phone.
And then I auditioned, and next thing I know,
exactly.
They were on Interscope, right?
They were on Interscope that was Interscope. That was right at the. I mean, you couldn't have timed that any better because the Meantime was just about to blow. It was there. It was building. And I think that first month or two that I was in the band is when it went gold, and things just kind of took off from there. And it was just a great experience. And part of me was like, I felt like I was due, so I was all about it. I was all in. Our first show together was in Columbia University. And then we started off the tour from there. And the reason why I remember that is because my poor sister drove me to the gig. I drove her car. I drove my sister's Nissan Sentra with my brother to the gig. On the way to the gig, I hit a pothole and blew out both tires. Both tires on the passengers. I blew out. So now I got to get on the bus. Thanks for the ride, sis. I got to go on tour. I get on the bus. I go on tour. And my poor sister and my brother had to deal with the car. But that's the main thing I remember about that gig was with the awful car ride.
No disrespect to Peter, but Peter Mengade was always out of tune. I was so stoked when Rob joined, if only to fix the tuning. LOL.
Thank you, Ryan.
That's true though. You were always an in-tune guy, and I think by then were you playing the Paul Reed Smiths when you joined Helmet?
No. I had that BC Rich. I brought my I brought my Marshall. I had all my Pieces stuff, so I brought my Marshall, my SG, and my BC Rich. And then that stuff started getting beat up on tour. It started getting really beat up, and then there had to be some kind of gear change because I didn't want myself getting messed up. And then this is kind of where Zum should come in because he'll understand like where then I switched like Marshall preamps, and they had a Boogie deal, and we started to get like all these different kind of endorsements. They had this like Harry Colby cabinet endorsement, which are like these very expensive, super duper cabinets that I wound up ripping out the speakers anyway, and doing my own thing with them, and then the deal started coming, and then things started changing. But yeah,
and we'll talk about some gear a little bit later on. But didn't the I think before you guys went in and recorded Betty, didn't the Crow soundtrack kind of come out before that, and you guys
that was before.
Yeah. So did you guys go into the studio to record Milk Toast for the Crow soundtrack?
Ooh, I had to go. Yeah. It was
right. You had to, right?
Yeah, it was done separately. Yeah. That was a Butch Vig thing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of fuzzy on that because I'm pretty sure it was either. Well, we only worked with Butch Vig or Andy Wallace on that, so I'm not sure who recorded. But
that must have been nice out of the gate to have a track on a soundtrack that I believe went gold, right? I mean, let me just say about the Crow soundtrack. That's sort of the gold standard of soundtracks at the time. Remember when it was all this soundtrack, the Crow soundtrack was really like the best one.
Well, my understanding of it was a little bit more negative in the sense that I think Milk Toast was going to be the song of that soundtrack, and then came the death of Brandon Lee, and then they pushed it out. Eesh. But then I say to myself, then how come the Stone Temple's Pilots and all that other stuff came out on that soundtrack without a prom? Or are they using that just because really Milk Toast was supposed to be the hit,
right?
Because we were waiting like for that to break, and then as luck would have it, boom, he goes and dies, and now they're pulling the whole thing, and so I don't know what happened with that, but it wound up going platinum, so it was a pretty big deal. It was pretty cool.
That must have been kind of cool. You're right out of the gate. You're on a platinum record.
But again, it's like call it cocky or just the fact that I felt like I was due. I felt like I didn't understand the magnitude of any of it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't understand. Like, all right. Like being a regular Joe and seeing that was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But back then was like, yeah, whatever. It's just another, like, okay, that's cool, whatever. It wasn't such a big like, wow, but it should have been.
Blast Beat Industries informs us that Wikipedia says that Butch Vig recorded Milk Toast at Sound on Sound Studio. Makes sense. So
you need like the little fact checker dude, like the CNN guy, like fact checker.
I got probably 5,000 people around the world watching the show. So all we have to do is ask, and it comes back. That's one of the great things.
Because I don't remember things.
Nah, it's great. Let's talk about this, which is arguably a masterpiece. This is Helmet's finest moment. This is a great friggin' record, man.
It is, and again, I love the fact that you wanted to take it to a different direction and kind of like, against the grain of what the record company wanted and all that stuff like that. But it's also kind of like hurting because, I know the intention was for me to not play on that record, but I'm glad I did. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of a, but it was just a fun time. I mean, the whole different thing with Helmet was joining that band. I expected like my first expectation was like to go into a band with like some metal kids, because when you listen to Meantime, it's pretty heavy, and you think like, oh, these guys must be into metal. Anything but. To me, it was almost like metal was a bad thing, So, and I know you spoke of Manowar. We could talk about that later, but I remember listening to Manowar on the bus, and I got so much crap for listening to Manowar because it was like beyond cheesy, and like there is nothing metal about Helmet dudes at all. I mean, the only things we agreed upon, I think, were ZZ Top, Steely Dan, Gang of Four, and Led Zeppelin, and that's it. That's all we had in common. Henry was doing his Robin Trower, George Jones thing. Page had his jazz thing going on. I'm a metalhead. And then John was the closest thing I could relate to, who was more like skater or hardcore kind of, like West Coast, like the indie dude, But that was all new to me because I wasn't like into like any of the indie bands and the whole AmRep thing and all that stuff.
That
was a total curveball. So it was a whole learning experience in that way. musically, what these bands were into, going on tour with the Jesus Lizard for the first time was just like, what is this, man? But I loved it. Like Dwayne Dennison's one of my favorite guitar players. Like that's where I was exposed to Dwayne, and Dwayne is fantastic, man. So in that way, it's helpful, and it's a great thing because it's just totally blows your mind as far as musically the things that are going on. Totally different and out of the box compared to what I was used to.
Makes a lot of sense. And also, as we're moving on here, you guys turned up in the Jerky Boys movie in 1995.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. The Jerky Boys movie wasn't that bad. It was actually
it
wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. I mean, how hilarious, having Ozzy play our manager.
Right.
The only line he had to say was like the effing monkeys. That's his only line, which took a couple of hours. It took a long time to get that down.
Wow.
My favorite part of that whole thing, if you remember the gangsters in that movie, who were the gangsters in that movie? It was
the guy from The Sopranos, Thomas Pastore.
Yeah.
And who was the other guy? I don't remember. I remember him, but I don't.
The guy who
Paulie Walnuts, that dude.
It was Tony Servo and Vincent Pastore, right? And then the other guy with the long hair and the beard, I don't remember, but I remember hanging out with those guys in between shoots, and Tony awesome. and they were like big Morrissey fans. That's the only thing I remember. Like he was talking about Morrissey. He's like, "Oh yeah, I love Morrissey.
Hey, I love that guy."
But then look,
Alan Arkin. Yeah, Alan Arkin was in the film.
Yeah, but when you look at years later where they are, it's like those were the Soprano dudes playing our the guys we were running from. And Page almost lost an eye because of like the sparks and like the pyrotechnics went awry, and he got like shot in the eye with like a spark. We're covered in like flame retardant. The whole thing was, and then he goes and says something bad about the movie, and Disney was like really. I mean, you get paid like $90,000 for a movie, you don't say anything. But something came up, and it was like the whole thing went down here really quick, and it was bad.
Page is good like that.
bad feelings throughout, So never heard from those guys again. Needless to say.
Yeah, well,
it happens, man. Hey.
Yeah. Let's do this. Let's what's up with Sid, man? Let's bring on Sid the Kid. What's up, Sid?
What's going on, guys?
What's happening, man?
What up, Sid?
Hanging in there like we all do every day, Drew.
Did you send me album of the week? Here it is.
I believe I did.
Hey, Rob, let's do album of the week together with Sid the Kid, huh?
I'm excited.
Let's have some fun with this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. This is album of the week. Boom.
Oh, yes.
All right, Sid, you have the floor. Do your stuff.
Hey, it's been said in the chat. It's been said on the show. But you know what? It just had to happen today. So, obviously, for those who don't know, this has been talked about a lot. And, this full-length record entitled – sorry. This is Venom's full-length first record entitled Welcome to Hell, which was recorded at Impulse Studios in Newcastle, England, I believe, in August of 1981. In, believe it or not, 3 days, this whole album was recorded. And it came out later in December of the same year with Keith and Nicole, I believe, producing it and with the band as well. It was released on Neat Records, and also Combat did the distribution for this elsewhere. The album cover itself was designed by Lant, if I'm not mistaken, and basically using the same graphics for the cover, I believe, from the League with Satan single. So they kind of ramped and did a little different stuff to it. I mean, the album itself is one of those true main staples in heavy metal. I mean, like, if you're into any kind of metal, this album always comes up, or in people's top 10 or whatever. And we've, going as far to even listen to the record, there's a lot of heads of punk rock and, and stuff like that. But so many other punk bands and hardcore bands later on totally, use this album as an influence. I mean, when the band recorded it, you could tell just from the recording itself, it's such a raw and loud sound, which shows throughout the entire recording. The album itself, like I said, had a great influence on so many bands, when it comes to punk, metal, thrash, death metal, black metal. And, just to me, surprisingly, that this was recorded only in 3 days. The band themselves believed that, this was going to be a demo, and it ended up being, their first full-length album. The tracks, talking about serial killing, drug use, witchcraft, sexual depravity, Satanism. You have it all. You want like that offensive record? That's it.
All right.
And on one quick note, actually, too, even I believe on the track 1,000 Days in Sodom, it's actually one of the, or I believe it was one of the tracks on there. Is technically, well, it's been stated that is actually one of the earliest instances of satanic subliminal messaging in music.
Oh my!
That record was like our record.
So hey, Rob, give us. Did this resonate with you? Tell us about it.
Oh my! This was the record in high school, man. It's like, again, my friend Eddie found this record and he brought like, these guys look crazy. Let's put it on. We put it on, and at first we thought it was kind of funny. We kind of laughed at it,
Uh-huh.
But then we kind of really got into it. Like, this is like some heavy, like insane stuff. But it is, yeah. I mean, Mantis and Cronus and Abaddon. That was basically when I first met Lou and Pete and Norman and all those guys. That was it. Venom. I mean, Vic Venom.
Yeah.
That was that's the dude with the Venom on his jacket. Like, wow, like
Vic Venom from Reagan Youth, right?
Yeah, it was just that was a very, very influential record for sure.
I have to say that at the time, this record wasn't on my radar screen.
Right.
I mean, what year did this come out? You said 81?
81.
In 81, I was in the trenches as a first wave American hardcore kid, Skinhead, Minor Threat, SSD Control and all that kind of stuff. And, Venom wasn't exactly on my radar screen.
That was the opposite for us, because it was like, all right,
yeah.
How much deeper can you go? How right. It's like the most underground metal record at the time. It was like, wow, you hear this stuff? It's crazy.
I went and listened to this today, as I often do when I do my homework, and wow, what I heard in it? I heard and of course reverse it, but I heard Carnivore. I heard early Motley Crue. I heard like a lot of straight Carnivore rips.
Absolutely.
Right off this record, man. And I have to say, early Motley Crue came up for me also. I know Motley Crue was around this time, but real early stuff. And the one person that was relentless about Venom was back in the day when I used to manage Marauder. It was Saab that used to play guitar. God rest his soul. He loved Venom. Those Marauder guys listened to Venom when we were on tour all the time, right?
When they played the Paramount Theater in Staten Island, they almost burned the place down, man. It was a bootleg tape. There was a bootleg cassette of the concert, and all you heard was, and it was 5 minutes of fire.
Just gotta look that up.
It's like, they got banned because they burned all the curtains down. The whole thing almost went down in flames. It was hilarious.
Funny enough,
hold on, hold your horses. I have it in the archives. Would that be this? Would that be this? Venom at the Paramount Theater with Metallica?
Yeah.
It's quite a possibility, Drew.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, funny enough, years later, around
of your life,
near when Black Flag, was near the end of their run.
That is awesome.
They did a few shows with Venom, and Henry has quite a few things to say about Cronus. Like, some of it's pretty comedic, and Cronus himself quickly established himself as the most annoying voice in rock, and it would be considered, because even when the record has such significant historical metal relevance, but he basically states it wasn't the most listenable record in his opinion. But of course that's sick argument, because when you put something out, you are your own worst critic. But even though other people like it, you might not. But
they were like ridiculously high maintenance, and like nobody wanted to book them, and like it was just
That's where Rollins kind of had a few things to say about him. And like the dude from
when worlds collide. There, you got Black Flag, you got Venom. It's two different worlds, man. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, certainly, I consider myself a music historian at this point, and I could certainly see where Venom, has been a huge influence on so much.
Absolutely.
Hey, Sid, you got a show coming up? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So it's like one of the kind of those white whales in hardcore and punk rock. And even no disrespect to Drew, I snagged him before Drew did. Because this guy, if you're down with, with surf, with skating, this guy right here is one of those people I've been trying to get, since I've been doing the show. And obviously it's Brandon from Dr. No. He did spend a little stint in the Dead Kennedys too. We're going to talk a little bit about everything this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely check it out. Go to mixlr.com/SDK Sound System. And, of course, if you can't listen to the show, you just jump on Instagram, Sid the Kid _Sound System, and you can just watch the interview. Want to check that out? Like, I put a lot, as Drew says, I did my homework with Brandon. I mean, as much as, and a lot of people know, he was a
Brandon Cruz. That's Brandon Cruz that was on The Courtship of Eddie's Father.
Yeah, see, the one thing is we're not.
You don't want to talk. He never wants to talk about
that's
that.
the thing.
Wow.
We were discussing a lot of this stuff. And I mean, I did have to ask him one or two questions, but they're very minimal, nothing too deep, because we just want to talk about Dr. No. We want to talk about the Oxnard hardcore scene. We want to get more into that.
He sang for the Dead Kennedys too for a minute, right?
He sang for them for, I believe, a few years, believe it or not.
Oh, he was in the Bad News Bears, of course.
Yeah, see,
we love that guy.
But see, to this day, that's where I bust Brandon's chops over that. Because even though he was kind of the bad guy, he wasn't. It was the coach who was the biggest scumbag out of that entire movie for the opposing team, not Walter Matthau.
No, I know the guy you're talking about. That movie's still great.
Oh yeah, no, it's a fucking classic. Drew,
all right, Sid. Well done, Sid. You really do your homework with these, and we appreciate it, man.
Because I have to keep, hey, Drew, every show I got to step up my game, as you say. I got to step it up every fucking show.
You know what you get? You get the you're like comeback player of the year, because when this show started, I was like, I don't know, Sid it's not really working with Sid, but you know what? You really, really do a great job, Sid. So
it's all those years of playing shitty punk rock at shows that you learn stuff.
And I'm also kind of being nice to you now, because my dad said to me, you're really hard on your guys, So he told me that today. He told me that last night. He said, you got to ease up on him a little bit. So
I think Drew. I believe I know for a fact he was referring to me more than anybody. That's what I
rail on the other two guys too. All right, listen. I'll see you later, man.
All righty, thanks a lot, guys. And wait, shout out Sunday, really quick. I'm not gonna pull the rap on something, but. Obviously, Drew did mention this, but I want to give a big shout out to my brother Saab. It's been now 16 years since he's passed. Amazing guitar player. And I really do miss him. And he brought so much to Marauder, just his playing, his stage presence alone. And if you were in the pit and didn't get knocked out by him, consider yourself lucky. And that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, I managed Marauder back in the Master Killer era, and I could write a book on it. Maybe someday. I'll talk to you soon, Sid. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Later.
That was cool.
That's great.
Sid does his homework. So let's talk about this here. Now, I've mentioned this before. I'm kind of jumping ahead. Let me clear the deck a little bit. I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but this has come up on the show before. This record. I love this record, man. I really, really do. And, as you know, of course, because you and I spent a lot of time together on the road out there, I am linked with Biohazard for all the work that I've done with them. And I'm grateful for that. But this is probably could be my second favorite next to Urban Discipline. This record really I love. I love the way it sounds. I love the separation on this record. Tell us about how you came into the Biohazard fold.
I got to mention Steve again, Steve Martin. What I believe he gave the heads up to those guys that I was available. But funny enough, the guy I knew the most out of the band was Bobby. So I remember seeing them open up for Slayer at Roseland, and I hung out with Bobby, and, but I didn't really know the other guys. And then Helmet was on a big festival in Europe, and then we wound up meeting Evan, and I spoke to Evan for quite a while. We hung out for a bit, and then I got the call again once, probably a few months later, because Helmet was over in '96. And then spring of '96, I was in Biohazard, so it's probably only a couple months difference there. And then I was back on the bus with the boys, different set of boys, and it was a different set of boys completely, because it was night and day as far as no disrespect or anything. It's just a weird transition, if you will, because the Helmet thing was a little bit more awkward, for lack of a better word, because it was like you had your own hotel room. The guys really didn't hang out with each other. I remember being by myself a lot in like Australia. Of like, what do you do in Australia by yourself in the late '90s without like Google and like some kind of like help? There was some weird moments there. But your own room and everything like that. So it was cool, but it wasn't that much fun. And then along came Biohazard. Then I felt like, all right, there was a connection there as far as like, being from the neighborhoods. First of all, there's always going to be some kind of camaraderie. We knew the same people. But I gotta throw this out there though, because now that we're all old, everybody's huggy, everybody's friends. But I got a lot of crap for being in that band. I got a lot of crap for joining that band. That band always got a lot of crap from New York hardcore, and it was just like not warm and fuzzy the way it is now, but I'm glad it's there now. But it was just kind of funny to see that, people had a problem with that, or it was a joke or kind of, a step down or whatever. But it was probably the most fun I ever had, in my musical career as far as touring, because bunch of good dudes, bunch of good times. You were there. We had some moments,
I have a photo. It's never been seen before. I've never posted it. Talking about being on the road and talking about good times. Check this out.
Oh, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? Yeah.
you, me, and Danny Schuler. I think we
closed off the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We had the whole place to ourselves, man. That was
awesome.
Yeah, man, they closed it up. They had Peter Chris's drum set, and that whole quote about avarice on the wall. Oh man, that was great stuff, man. Check out my jeans. First of all, they're huge. Oh my God, I got the Qualcomm phone in my pocket.
Oh wow.
And my Sky pager in my hip.
Wow.
Qualcomm phone and Sky pager.
I have a braided mohawk in that shot.
Yeah.
I have a braided mohawk. Of course, Danny's doing Danny. And, they have the great Pink Floyd, the wall puppets in there.
Fantastic. Yeah, man.
Yeah, here we go. Junkos. Is that what those jeans were called? Junkos?
Yeah.
Jenkos or something like that?
There it is. It was whatever was free that Evan finagled for some. That's what they were. Whatever they threw my way, I wore them. Whatever.
Oh, geez.
But the favorite thing about that Sky pager that I wish I had today, and I'll never forget, getting a text from Scott Koenig. Drinks with Iron Maiden at 5:00. And that's how we met Iron Maiden, and that's how we got the Monsters of Rock show. And hanging out with them at some bar in New York at like 5:00 because they were old. They wanted to get it over early.
That's awesome.
Best thing ever that came on that pager was that.
I remember that sort of Biohazard era and being out with you guys, and you guys played some really killer festivals back then. Like, yeah, I remember we go to a festival and we'd be like, "Who's on this?" Like David Bowie, Kiss. The fun-loving criminals, and like what?
There was a picture. I know you wanted pictures, but of course, showing my age and showing the time, nothing's digitized. I have a bunch of crap, like me and Tracy.
There's a Manowar picture. There's a Manowar picture. Is that our Manowar picture?
And the Manowar picture, yeah.
Hold it up. Hold it up. Hold it up.
I have the good ones, but I can't find it.
Yeah, right? you, me, and Manowar. That is awesome.
But I have the better ones. We're on their motorcycles and we're doing the Iron Hammer. Remember, they rode their motorcycles up on stage.
Dude, hold on. I got all those pictures, bro. I took that
They
was my
rode their
camera.
Harleys up onto the stage, and it was like the most like machismo show I ever saw in my life. It was
I remember it was in France.
right. And Joey DeMeo was still doing all the like 80s like tongue flacking, looking at the girls and doing all. It was just so freaking hilarious. But it was.
Where are my Man-O-War pictures? Man-O-War, Man-O-War. Oh,
I mean,
man.
made it on the Monsters of Rock thing. That was phenomenal, man. It's like I remember looking at Billy like he was 50 feet away from me, and I'm like, dude. And then I turned around, there's a gigantic me on the screen. I'm like, holy crap! Look at the side of this stage, man. So there was some crazy ass shows, man.
Wasn't it? Did we play with Metallica at some point? I remember
Metallica in Italy. We got that picture.
Oh shit! I took that. Hold on, let me see that. Yeah, I took that, man. That's awesome. Hold on.
Yeah.
Put it up. Put it up again. That is awesome. I took that. That is awesome.
In Italy with the Metallica cats.
Yeah, they're cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, so I have a bunch of that crap, but and nothing. I mean, come on, King Diamond. I mean, come on. You don't have to be a fan of metal, but come on, King Diamond. Come on, dude. And he was like the sweetest guy, right? He was like the normal guy.
He's like, hey, kid, can we get a picture? He's like, yeah, sure. You
know, like high pitched voice.
He was great. He was great.
Awesome.
I don't know where my Man-O-War pictures are, but boy, there's a bunch of us having a lot of fun with them, man.
How do you bring your Harleys out to Europe?
They ship them in a container. They told me.
How much does that cost, man?
Yeah.
We're talking about Man-O-War. Like, I mean, it's just like it was mind blowing that they would bring like their 4 Harleys just to ride their Harleys out on stage for like 20 seconds.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Crazy,
incredible. Yeah, it was crazy. Let's talk about you know what? Let's check out on the music thing. Let's check out on the music thing a little bit, and then we'll talk about the Rangers a little bit and a couple of things, and we'll take some questions.
All right.
Let's
Story of Lou. Can't wait to talk to the story of Lou, man.
Yeah, I got the pictures, man. And I'm quoting you on this. The last show I played was at the Hammerstein Ballroom with Slipknot and the Insane Clown Posse, where I distinctly remember looking at the crowd and looking in the eyes of a 15-year-old kid who was obviously waiting for Slipknot, and I thought, what am I doing here? There was no connection to anything or anyone around. I felt old. I felt done. Music was my job, a job. The show was over. I got off the bus and literally haven't seen anyone since. I still love to play, and if and when the time is right, we'll play out again. I know that's a while ago, and the Rest in Pieces thing happened after that, but, listen, I remember being out there on the road with you and, around that time, and it was kind of obvious to me that you were kind of, you were getting tired of the whole thing.
There was some hard dynamics going on, everybody was questioning whether some other people in the band were into the band or doing their own thing. There comes that time where I think we all felt that New World Disorder was going to be good. That especially like End of My Rope, we thought like, oh, it was going to be a hit, Yeah. And then when things start to not work out, I think everybody starts to go in their own little different directions. But because you brought up the record, and I was like, let me listen to it. So I listened to it last night. I was like, it had some really good moments.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, it kind of reminded me, and you wouldn't think listening to that record that the band was going through that kind of stuff. I mean, there was some dark stuff going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was exactly it. It was the disconnect, of like, and always being the new guy has something to do with that too. Always being the replacement guy, A band never really gets to me never really gets over, and you see that with Metallica, like with how they abuse Jason, and like does Helmet, did they want Peter back? No, but like I'm sure they had their times with Peter that were good, and did they want Bobby back? And there's always like this sense of like, ooh, do they really want me here? Is this really working out? And you don't really belong there. And then to throw that on top of it, where you're like, you're paying you're playing, you're opening up now to like 15-year-old kids, and yeah, so it was just kind of like, I heard all kinds of rumors about why I left and that I got married and all this stuff. But I already was married and I didn't, But the truth was that, yeah, I really felt old and done. Like there was nowhere to go. I mean, we tried to write a record that was, going to take us somewhere, and it really didn't pan out that way. And now you have to think to yourself, and I remember all of us going through like the financial thing of like, all right, there's mortgages to pay, there's houses and kids or whatever. And then when that became the sole purpose to why I'm doing this, I had a huge problem with that. It was no longer, I am happy as shit sitting in my room right now, and I could like play along with a Maiden record or something, and I'm happy. It doesn't have to make me millions of dollars, but I want to be happy about it first. I want to be able, to that love I have with my instrument. It was just, just because I love to play guitar, not because.
You stepped away for a long time.
I stepped away for a good, a long time. My intention was to fall off the grid, man. Like I really didn't want to talk to anybody. I know there's people out there who like when Facebook first came out, they were like friend request. I wasn't even on there for a long time. So if I offended anybody by not accepting friend requests or whatever, or like people think I didn't want anything to do with them, it was just a time in my life where I didn't want anything to do with anybody, because I didn't even know what I was going to do. In hindsight, I think it was kind of a ballsy move on my end that like, oh, I'm just going to stop doing this. And then I bought a house in South Jersey, and I'm like, oh shit, now what am I going to do? And then you got to find your way through that. And then, so it all becomes this whole like, oh, okay, reality hits pretty hard,
Absolutely. But, I think you mentioned it before, how just in where we are at now in this space and time, a lot of things have come full circle. And
right.
like we all can reapproach each other now, and with the hindsight of sort of nostalgia, and it's sort of a nice feeling to be able to, the bad things have sort of faded, and we remember the good things a little bit.
Yeah, the things that were so big back then are not so big right now, and there's so many things to worry about. And I guess a little bit for me was a little bit of embarrassment too, because it's like, some of my friends were like, dude, you're a freaking guitar player, and here I am like I've always been a worker. So I got no problem looking in the classifieds and seeing what the hell is available for a job, because I work. I want to work, I got to work. I got to make money. So moving out to Jersey and then like nothing to do, I'm, find myself a job, whatever. And that's, to me, I was fine with that. It didn't really bother me, but
absolutely. And you sort of reinvented yourself. You were teaching yoga for a while, right?
That whole thing came from the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is where that whole thing started. Was, when we were out with Biohazard, remember them having, the Brazilian guys.
The mats were out every night.
We always used to toss around.
Yep.
And I remember like going to the place in Chelsea there at Hensel's place, and they would always be like, "Oh, your hips are too tight." And I remember seeing a picture of Hickman Gracie in this crazy yoga pose where he's twisting and binding. I'm like, what is that? And that's my first exposure to yoga, was Hickman Gracie doing yoga.
Wow.
So I thought that looked cool, So I started doing, if you're anything into yoga, it's not the physical aspect, it's the mental aspect, really, is the true thing. So I started physically practicing those things to kind of get my flexibility, what have you. But then that period is pretty dark. Pretty dark for me. And then I started like kind of delving into like Hinduism and just trying to find a little bit more spirituality and stuff like that. And I wound up meeting a Swami at like a Walmart in South Jersey, and then I wound up going to this place to kind of listen to him talk and, practice a little bit. And I got more into that aspect of it. But like everything else, it turned weird, they get together, it's this whole big commune kind of thing. So I kind of, but it put me on a path of like really learning who I am, not physically and mentally. And it was just a great path to go. And I never wanted to teach it, but I became a personal trainer in this whole mix.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You were a personal trainer for a while.
Yeah. And then what happened was like they needed a yoga teacher for like an immediate thing, and they wound up like throwing me into this class to teach a yoga thing. And the next thing you know, I became a yoga instructor.
That's cool.
It was my intention to like do that kind of thing.
You know, a lot of you Jersey guys, aren't you down there with Tim from Ensign?
Down here, Tim Shaw is a Jivamukti instructor. You know, I see.
I love his new band. He has a new band called "Fuck It, I Quit."
Yeah,
they played our A7 thing, man.
I see them now and then in front of a Cafe Volant, which is down the street from me here. And then you know, Brian Baker's my neighbor. He doesn't even realize I'm right down the street. All these, so here I am trying to fall off the radar, and all these guys start showing up. Like, now where am I going to go? I'm already at the edge of the ocean. Where am I going to go?
All right, where am I going to go from here? All right. Hey, let me take my final sponsor break, and let's come back and let's take some questions from around the world, okay?
You got it. Thanks.
All right, this is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, and our guest today is Rob Echeverria, Helmet, Biohazard, Rest in Pieces, Straight Ahead. It is Sunday Shout-Out Day. We are really having a great time, and thanks for tuning in. We are sponsored by New York Hardcore Comics. New York Hardcore Comics opened back in 2013 when lifelong friends Debo DePro and Lee Fairley combined their collections and obsessions for comic books, punk rock, toys, statues, Magic the Gathering, and all things horror. The store is located at 117 Main Street in lovely Dobbs Ferry, New York. If you want to support them during this pandemic or the next one after that, please contact them via email at newyorkhardcorecomics@gmail.com. Also, got to shout out hard Vlad, an organic grill. It's a vegan restaurant located in East Village at 123 First Avenue, featured in New York Magazine, the New York Times, and Veg News. Their dishes have won numerous awards, including Best Veggie Burger. They make their own cheeses, sausages, and burger patties, and every dish on the menu could be made gluten-free. This year, they're celebrating their 20th anniversary, and they're all about having a great time while enjoying amazing, clean food. After 3 months of being closed, they're now open for deliveries. Actually, hey, Vlad, we gotta get some new text going. Yo, New York City's open restaurants now, I think 50% and 75% coming up real soon. So you could bring your ass down there and actually sit in the joint, and you could talk to Vlad. Vlad loves it when people from the show come in there. He sends me pictures constantly, and look who's here, you know. So please support Vlad. He's one of our beloved sponsors. Get in touch with them at www.theorganicgrill.com. Also, I know I mentioned it before. I want to mention it again. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, don't be shy. Let it fly. The New York, the A7 Back to the New York Hardcore Roots compilation pre-order link is going up tomorrow at 3 o'clock. It is a red splatter vinyl. The package is designed by Jonathan Buskey. There is a 24-page fanzine that's only going to be in the first run. The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. So, it's a red splatter, lots of cool stuff. Maybe it was the Venom thing that put the Exorcist thing in my head, right? The power of Christ compels you. God, that was a scary movie, man, as a kid. Oof. Woo-wee. Also, a couple upcoming shows, lest we forget. Sunday, May 23rd. Kate Reddy, Kate 108. We love when gals come on the show. Kate 108's coming on the show. We'll be talking about a lot of stuff, music and spirituality. So don't be shy, let it fly. And then, this is very appropriate with a lot of the themes on the show today. Sunday, June 6th, OG of the thrash metal movement, Mr. John Zazula from Megaforce. He also has a book out called Heavy Tales. We got Johnny Z coming on the show. And there's a couple of other things in the works as well. You know what I wanted to mention? I haven't mentioned this in a while. Let me mention this. If you're out there and you're at home and you're wondering, what can I watch on Amazon Prime? and you haven't already watched a couple of my crappy documentary movies, the New York Hardcore Chronicles film is on Amazon Prime. All XXX, All Ages XXX, the Boston Hardcore film, is on Amazon Prime. And the New York Hardcore Chronicles 1.5 is on regular Amazon. Take off your yarmulke, spend a couple bucks, watch the New York Hardcore Chronicles film 1.5. Who the fuck is that guy, the Fabulous Journey of Michael Lago? You can't watch it right now. We're in between distributors. We're going to contract now. Like we've spoke about, it looks like we're shooting a epilogue to the Alago film, and there's going to be a whole new re-release with the film, and then then you'll be able to watch it. So the Alago film is out of circulation for a little bit. That said, you've seen all 4. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Lenny's seen. Okay, well, I guess I'm preaching to the converter. I'm preaching to the converter. Yes. Thank you. Great job, Drew. Keep up the amazing work. Hey, I must. My head is spinning like Linda Blair. The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. That said, let's take questions. Please. I know a lot of people ask questions during the opening. Please repost your questions for our guest, Rob Echeverria. And you know what? I want to start with this. Hold on. Here you go. You ready, Rob? I'm bringing you back on. Here's you and one of our buddies, of course. There you go. There you go.
Opa!
Let's talk about your love for the New York Rangers. I've run into you at Ranger games. I am a Ranger fan, although I am certainly not of the magnitude and the level that you, Astoria Lou, Mitz, there's a couple of you guys out there that are like really hardcore Ranger fans.
But it's painful, man. It's painful.
Especially last night after they lost to the Islanders in a shutout, letting the Islanders clinch. Ouch.
Every time you want them to step up, it's not going to happen. But let's see what happens. So I was always a fan. A kid in Corona, again, 1980 Olympics. I'm all USA hockey. I bought in. I bought my Brian Trottier stick. I brought my little street ball. Nobody wanted to play hockey. Nobody. Everybody's football, baseball, whatever. I went to a couple of games in the 80s because my sisters had corporate jobs and they got tickets. So I was lucky. So I always had this. It's like in the back of my mind. But moving out here, around 2003, I started working with some dudes who were like hardcore Jersey Devil dudes, and that was it. It was on. So then I had to represent hard, and then I started bringing and then it just kept building and building. And then I met my girlfriend at the time, who was Canadian, who is now my wife, who is Canadian, and loves hockey just as much as I do. So now that was our obsession was going to Ranger games. So when this was taken, oh my God, 2010, maybe even earlier.
Yeah, this looks like a while ago.
Yeah, I was there quite a bit. And then that's where I met Lou. And then I had no idea that he's the 1 degree separation from you and everybody in the world.
Yes.
And then he has a picture with everybody in the world.
Yeah, Lou is one of my good friends. We spend a lot of time together.
I got a picture with this guy. I got a picture with that guy. I got a picture with this guy.
Yep.
But so then him and Angelo, his buddy Angelo, so we'd always run into each other at the games and go through the horror or the wins, and go along for the ride. And to this day, we don't never miss the game, home or away, man.
Do you deal? Are you a season ticket holder?
No, I used to do the partial thing, and then we had like a connection with one of their office people. For the most part, a lot of it was luck. I mean, we won some contests between my wife and I. We had some great moments. If I'm going to share one great moment with the whole thing, was I don't even know if one of the guys who lives out here is Peter Chris, right? So Peter Chris happens to stumble into the gym that I'm working at, right? Mm-hmm. And there I am at a gym, and I see dude walking on treadmill. It's Peter Chris.
And there was no doubt about it. You looked at him.
No doubt about it.
That's Peter Chris.
Oh, yeah, you're right. picture being in Jersey, like with a bunch of like, it's more like a country club kind of vibe, So there's like old folks or whatever, and there's this dude in dyed black hair, all black, pale skin. It's like he's got to be somebody,
rock star, got to be a rock star.
So this is right after we just did the Donington thing too, So we played with them a little bit, so we can't. So I'm like, Peter, he's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, I'm Rob. I played in Biohazard. We opened up for you guys, and he's like. And we look at each other like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm from Queens, you're from Brooklyn. What the hell are you doing in Wall, New Jersey, right? So it turned out his wife was from Wall. And I'm going to go through this real quick. But so in 2010, he was having a book, his autobiography written by this guy, Larry Ratso Salmon. Larry Ratso Salmon wrote the Ranger book. He wrote the Ranger book. So he's going to do Peter's autobiography. And he knows I'm a big hockey fan, so he says, hey, why don't we go to a game? I'm like, all right. So Peter's like, we'll get it together. So apparently he gets Larry to put it all together where we're going to go see, and I don't know if you remember the first Ranger Islander 3D game that was ever broadcast. It was a 3D game that was broadcast on national TV.
Wow.
So yeah, it was like a big thing. So long story short, I get in my Mustang that I'm driving at the time, and I pick up Peter at his house, throw Peter Chris in my car, and off we go to MSG, where we go to Cafe 31, where we're supposed to meet Ratso with the tickets. And this is where it gets ugly because there are no tickets. So we show up there. But this is where I met the world. I met like Greshner, who we're still in contact with. I met Chris Kostopoulos, Coatsy, the big man.
Well, I'm friends with him. I'm friends with Chris, and he
touches base. Yeah. So I met. It was like a great night. I mean, I get in there. It's red carpet. It's like the whole shebang. But we got nowhere to sit. There's no tickets. We're in the kitchen of MSG, and here I am with Peter Chris and Ratso Solomon. And we got nowhere to go. We're sitting in the kitchen, and they keep moving us around to different places so we can watch the game, which no one really see the game in the first place. But my favorite story about that whole thing was that, if you know anything about me, I love to eat, right? So who's the first guy in the green room when that thing is open and all that food and catering is there?
Uh-huh. This guy here.
I'm digging in. There's nobody there. I'm digging in. I'm feasting. And I feel a tap on my shoulder. Hey, how you doing? I'm Mark. Turn around, shake his hand. Messier. I'm like, I know who you are. And I shook his hand. And then they all started to pile in for TU. All the dudes, they all started coming in. And then everybody was just hanging out. And it was like the greatest night of my life, man. Hanging out with Peter Chris, watching the game, meeting all the Rangers. I got into the locker room, which if you've ever been in a locker room, it's the worst thing you ever smelt in your life.
Really? No.
Aaron Gabrick is on getting interviewed, and it smells like death. Absolutely smells like death.
Smells like the tour bus. It smells like the tour bus in Italy in the late summer.
You could stick your head into the road case of Billy Sweat, and it would still be better than. Yeah, it was bad. But then I'm sitting there with like Stan Fischler, and then guess who walks over? Hi, I'm Hank. Nice to meet you, Henrik Lundqvist. Right?
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there with the boys, hanging out in Brandon Dubisky's stall. I'm in his way. He just came out of the shower.
That's awesome.
Like a really surreal moment of stuff. It was great. So that was my.
I like key word Fatiyu. Like being a New Yorker, like
you got
days in New York, like Nick Fatiyu, Staten Island. That's a big one.
Carried a hatchet in his bag on the train.
Hey, let's take some questions. Let's see what we got here.
I don't want to cut anybody off, but I have to address Mr. Lenços Cabezas from Brazil. I don't know if you see him, but it says, you remember playing at Scala Rio de Janeiro with Biohazard in a burning fever. The dumbest thing, I don't know if you know this, the dumbest thing we ever did. We did not get work visas. We put our gear into an airplane, flew to Brazil, and played a show where I had 104-degree fever. And the police show up. wanting our passports because we don't have working papers.
Wow.
And the only guy that we know is the promoter. And as we turn around getting interrogated, I turn around and there's the promoter in tears, crying for his mother.
Wow.
While we're in a Brazilian police headquarters,
Wow.
getting asked, and basically all we had to do was pay them off. And then they moved on their way. But it was the scariest moment. I have 104-degree fever.
Wow.
I'm playing a show, and we're going to wind up in prison. But yes, I do remember that. So thank you for asking.
You know, I sort of saw that one and sort of went right by it.
Oh yeah, no, but it
know?
was he kept asking. So yeah.
Let's try this from Ryan Aubin. What, if anything, did you learn musically from playing with Paige Hamilton? Seems like it would be a learning experience.
I would have to say, I wish it was more of a learning experience because, you know, I think I could be that annoying kid that like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, hey, what's that? What are you playing? What is that? You know, because I was kind of annoying everybody I knew at that moment. Like I was annoying Dwayne with like, you know, learning how to sight read and what chords are you playing in this song like that. So it wasn't really something that we really shared, but he did turn me on to like Wes Montgomery and stuff like that, you know, so I did get a lot of where to go and look for stuff, but it wasn't, you know, this wasn't a big warm fuzzy like camaraderie as far as guitar players go, you know. So you were
brought in as a hired hand,
right? And then it was just, you know, we didn't share. I don't think we had enough musically in common to even like discuss, you know.
Right. That makes sense. Paul Stone asks, Rob, you've played a lot of other people's riffs. What's your favorite? What's your own favorite like riff of your own that's yours that you wrote?
I would have to say one of my favorites is on the Pieces record, which is going to be I think it's in Cries of the Ghetto. There's stuff that I played on there that's great riffs, but honestly, I enjoy playing other people's riffs because I don't like anything that I play. The hardest thing for me as a writer is not throwing away everything that I write because, oh, that sounds like this, that sounds like that. That's how I was back then, where like I would write anything. Like to me, the songs, the riffs that I did write on that record either sound like Al Di Meola riffs or Megadeth riffs that, you know, something that influenced me at that time, but I don't want to sound like that. So I've changed my mind a little bit on how to approach that, where I'll allow myself to do something. Everything I write sounds like ZZ Top to me, but how can I make that different? And that's but as far as what my favorite riffs are, like for anything, Helmet, throwing out Ironhead, like every time we played Ironhead, I wanted to like kill everybody in the building. You know, but that would be number one.
This has come up a bunch of times. Rob, what did you use to boost your JCM 800 back in the day? Any pedals?
Tricky question. I don't know what made me want to do this, but I took a TC Electronic distortion pedal, put it on the boost setting, and run it through the effects loop. So I ran a boost through the effects loop with a Ibanez Sonic distortion through the front. And it just ripped. And that was it. That was like the main secret was like, don't let anybody see the TC box on top of the head. It was, you know.
Hey, one of our good friends that's been on the show many times, you know, is from Fryette. Aren't you getting down with Fryette these days?
I am, thanks to him. I mean, I'm definitely, you know, I was always on board, always curious. He hooked me up. There it is with a power station. What the power station does is basically take your 100-watt amp, which I have right here, which what the hell am I going to do with that here, right? And number one reason I did it, I have a dog. I have a dog who is terrified of loud music.
Right.
One thing, the rock in my life, I can't rock out in my own house because of my dog. Mm-hmm. So what that allows me to do is have this gigantic 100-watt sound at bedroom volume. So yep. So that's my go-to now with everything. So now I am turning into a gear nut thanks to him. Thank you, Zom. I will be calling you for more stuff.
Bro, could you imagine, dude? I grew up with him. I was in a band with him for years. You know, like the guy would talk gear. We'd be like, shut
I know.
All right.
When he started going in, and I was like, "Oh, there's this algorithm." I'm like,
Ah!
I'm like,
We used
I
to be
just
like,
wanna
you better
play it
stop,
and go,
bro.
"Woo," you know.
Here you go. Let's see.
Nice, Gibbs. TC Loop. You stole that from me, Gibbs. I know you did. You were watching. I came up with that. I came up with the TC Loop.
This is a weird one. I'm not sure if this may. Did some records closing contribute to Straight Ahead splitting up?
I don't think so. I mean,
Yeah, I don't see why.
I mean, he was like the #1 dude. They had nothing to do with each other.
Right. Lenny from Crazy Eddie, what year is that Les Paul behind you, and is there a story to it?
That is the first Les Paul I got from Helmet, and my first Gibson kind of endorsement, if you will, because you still had to pay for them. They weren't free. It's a 1960 reissue that I always wanted to have a Les Paul because of the guy sitting next to the Les Paul. And that's the story with that.
Yeah.
It's got water damage from the Milquetoast video because it was the Milquetoast video. The Milquetoast video, I got soaked in the rain, so there's a bunch of water damage on it, but it's still a workhorse.
And the Milquetoast video was a video off of the Crow soundtrack, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Produced by Alex Winter of.
Oh wow.
Yeah, produced by Alex Winter of Ted and
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Exactly.
He also just directed the new Frank Zappa documentary. Very good, very good. And he directed a Circus of Power video. We just had Alex Mitchell on the show.
Anybody's out there to correct me because I know he also did. I think he did Milquetoast, but he definitely did Wilma's Rainbow. You know, because I had the picture of us all in green suits, like covered in green suits and doing like the weird background stuff.
Chris asks, what, if any, new bands are you into these days? Or let's modify that. New bands, or what are you listening to these days?
I am the dude that is the farthest out of the loop that anybody can be as far as new bands. So I am still stuck in listening to, after Van Halen's passing, I'm reliving all those days. And still listening to all the good stuff, man. I mean, to me, Metallica is always going to be Master of Puppets and Kill 'Em All. I mean, Ride the Lightning, so what, all that stuff. But as much as I love the new bands, the older stuff is still better, man. And new bands to me are still probably 2000s. When you think of like the Mastodons and the Mars Voltas and the stuff like that. I mean, they're already old bands, but so nothing new to me.
That makes sense. Let me see. Listen, what's the story behind the Rest in Peace's song "Balls and All"? If it's obvious and it's dirty, we could skip.
It's obvious. It's obvious. Read the lyrics, man. Sure. Yo, Dark Bros, what it is? Dark Brothers, what it is? That's all you need to know.
There you go.
That's all you need to know.
What's the name of the Zappa doc? It's I think it's Zappa. What is it? Is Zappa in his own words? No. It's I've watched it. If you're a Zappa fan, you're like I am. I loved it. There's a lot of stuff in there that has never been seen. It's really great. Who was the first person Rob reached out to after having burnt all his bridges?
Wow, good one.
Yeah.
Oof. I really don't.
Wait, I saw you, the New York Hardcore Chronicles film screened down in South Jersey, and you showed up, and it was really, you were like, yo, you were just, I was walking down the street, and, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I ever, Richie Sipp has always been close to my heart. I mean, and he would come down here every summer, and I would see him on occasion. And he was kind of my connection to what else was going on. But Richie Sipp will probably be number one, but he's never out of he's never a bridge that's burnt. Yeah. Out of bridges that were burnt and rebuilt, I would have to say it'd be Danny. Danny. Once I got in touch with Danny, then then I wound up seeing Billy at Asbury Park. And then I wound up with some people, but
that makes sense. I'm just looking through this stuff.
Don't burn bridges anymore, man. That's I learned that one.
Yeah.
You take detours, you put up cones, you do what you got to do, right? You close a lane.
This is a good one from Joe Frank. When joining a new band, what's your preferred method of learning the tunes? One-on-one or just listening over and over?
Just listening over and over. I try to get as much of it as my interpretation of it that I can get on my own. So if I'm going to join a band right now, I would get their discography. I would listen to the whole thing, learn all the songs as far as what I think they are, and then they could correct me as we go along. But like, I want to get my take on it, and then kind of, I think it helps you kind of keep your flavor in there.
That makes sense.
Because,
Hey, let's bring on a couple of our guys, and let's head it down the home stretch. Ratbone, Sid, what's up?
What up?
Chilling.
You got anything for Rob, Ratbones, on the way out?
I have a whole bunch of stuff, man. No, I don't. Look, I just want to say one thing. Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen. Randy Rhoads or Eddie Van Halen?
That's a tough one, is because the two main guys I always avoided because it was always over my head because I'm not a speed guy. It would be those two guys. But without one, I don't think there would be the other. But in one sense, they're still completely separate because you got the neoclassical and Randy Rhoads, and then you got the whatever the hell I want to do in Eddie Van Halen. So to me, Eddie Van Halen, because it's still, he took all that neoclassical stuff and said, I don't want to play this Mozart piece exactly like this. I'm going to play it like this. And he did his own thing. And that was the great thing about him, was that he reinterpreted all that classical stuff into whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah, it was very unique at the time. Sid, what do you got? Hey, Ratbones, you want to shout out anybody out on the on Shout Out Sunday?
Yeah, let me shout out my old TR crew. Of course, I always give props to John Saltarelli. Rest in peace, man. He was the big Venom head. I always talk about him because he was like one of my best friends that passed. And real quick, just because we got a real true metalhead, I just want to show a couple of real cool pieces that at least Rob would really appreciate. This
nice
Maiden pick and Ernie Ball.
And don't forget
your buttons. I'm a big button guy too. When I do the flea markets, you find buttons for like $1 or $2.
I like that one. That's Ozzy after he shaved his head.
Yeah. And then the last one.
Forget who's your boy? Who gave you one? Who gave you a couple of these, man?
I got those.
You know
what?
This last one, man. This Maiden pin, this enamel pin.
Yeah.
And this is like, those are hot now, enamel pins, but this is back in the day.
I have some here that I can't take away, but yeah.
Don't make me go dig out my picks. I bet I have a DOS pick.
Let one last question for Rob. Yo, are you familiar with this record as a guitar player?
I am not. No, I'm not. I will check it out.
Right? You got to peep this record if it's not on your radar, brother. The Trick Attack.
Hey, Rob, here's a question from some guy, Pete, sick of it all, NYHC. Rob, I just want to know if you have any Smegma demo tapes.
Smegma demos. I wish I still had our shirt that said Smegma in white drippy letters.
What was Smegma? What was it?
So in high school, we Mike Sankowitz and myself and Richie, we just made a fake band and we called it Smegma, and it was like in white drippy cheesy letters, just to be somewhat offensive, I guess, and try to be like the cool kids in high school, because that's we were like the long-haired weirdos that nobody wanted to talk to. So that was our first band. My first band was Anorak, which was Corona spelled backwards, and I think I was like the third generation Anorak dude. And then we came up with Smegma for like the metal version, and never made a demo though. I wish we did, but I wish I had that picture of me and Mike outside of Roxy Studios and Richie and my friend Ralph. But we used to go and rehearse at Roxy and play whatever metal we could play,
Makes sense. Hey, Ratbones, we'll see you later.
All right, listen, Rob, thank you for all the music. You know what I got from today? The most thing I got today, you are a real workhorse. Like you said, you kept being the show up guy. I'm glad you showed up, brother, because you put down some of the hardest tracks of all time in hardcore and other music genres too. So good looking out. Great time today, guys. Thanks, Rob. And
see you later, Ratbones. Sorry, man.
Later. It's cool. It's cool.
I'll never hear the end of it. Sid, what do you got?
Rob, I just want to say, thank you for coming on the show. Even like one of the first bands I got to see besides AF, and I got to see you guys when you started doing your thing. The 2 shows to this day, and I was going to ask, this is one of the questions to you. What was the best straight ahead show you ever did?
Well, I know
to your memory.
The craziest was that reunion show. I know that was insane, but I wish I had my own gear. That was the only thing I remember. Like, this is not my guitar. I don't know what to do, But as far as like, man, you look at that video, it's just insanity. There's like nowhere to stand. There's like people everywhere, and it was just explosion, So,
speaking of reunions, for me, the best straight ahead show I ever saw was the Benefit for Roger,
right?
Where 9 million people in a place you can only hold maybe 1,000 if you were lucky. If that, and that show. I mean, I know it's somewhere on the internet. That show. I mean, I was literally in the back and I couldn't breathe because it was just so insane.
Right.
But I could always take those memories just because even from the first 12-inch.
So bad that I feel bad for people who can't who've never experienced that that vibe of like remember what it would be like to stand in front and watch the Cro-Mags and AF at that temperature and with the amount of people and that just the amount of grit and grime and like volume and the way that place always sounded, man, was always spot on. It's just you can't explain it to anybody unless you were there.
I mean, for me, it resonated. Even say from those live shows, you brought that on record, and it was like you're watching it or just listening to it. It was in your face, like Unnecessary Violence, Straight Ahead, We Stand, like it's all there. Right. And you guys brought it on the record as you did on stage, and that was the one thing that always resonated with me with Straight Ahead.
The only thing I regret about that is like that the songs were like 30 seconds long. It was like we were done in like 20 minutes. And
but the best stuff is like Al Bundy. You're in your album. See, but just like Al Bundy, it's a classic. It just keeps going. That's why it's so awesome.
So you blink and it's over. So.
Sid, we'll talk to you later.
All right, cheers, guys.
Take it easy, man. Pete.
This one's for you, Pete. You got me going on the let's see, on a couple of things, a couple of my favorites here that I got through the years. Joe Satriani.
Nice.
Another Joe Satriani, Surfing with the Alien. Now I'm not a big pick collector, but I just ended up getting it. Here's the. And these were got back in the day when like you'd actually have to get them from a roadie or something. It's not like now.
Right. Whose is that?
That's Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick.
Oh, yeah.
All right, here's another one. Yngwie Malmsteen. Ooh.
That's great. I have the Metallica ones around here somewhere, but they kind of faded out. But
my boy Tracy Guns. Hey, didn't you used to play these big taco chips back in the day?
I had with Biohazard I had the big purple. Yeah, the big purple.
Purple you know what? You gave me
these
guys. I
have them made now with my dogs on them. So
it's so funny. I got one of those from when you played in Biohazard, and I brought them home.
There you go.
And I started playing with these, and it's all I've ever played with since. I buy bags of them.
That's great.
That's from you giving me a couple of these picks.
Helmet Boys got into the Clayton ones, and that's where we started playing with the thicker ones. And then, but I had to get my dogs put on. Look at that! Come on, dog. Drew, I'm my dogs, man.
You're a big dog lover, aren't you?
Man, they changed my life, man. I got no kids. My kids have fur. I gotta sign it. Says that my kids have paws. Started rescuing dogs. And they're just like, if you're not a dog person, you don't get it. If you're a dog person, you know where I'm at, because it's just it's a full-time job. It's a gratifying job. They'll make you crazy, but man, every day they just love you, man. And then when they go, it's like my dad passed away, and when my dog passed away, and I just it's some people will be mad at me for saying it, but man, I lost it when my dog died, man. My dog is like it's just, I know humans that died, but it's just when your dog goes, man, that your heart is just like, done. And then, so dogs rule.
Okay.
People are
Geezer Butler, Black Sabbath.
Nice.
Okay, here, come on now.
I'll take you two Metallicas.
Cowboys from Hell, Dimebag Darrell.
That's
And
awesome.
here's another Pantera one with it's scratched, the roadie from Rex. So
Nice.
I got a ton. Oh, and then last but not least.
Nice. Nice. Awesome.
Greg ahead.
That's
Anyway, hey, I want to thank you a million for
great.
coming
Thank
on
you,
the show.
man.
It was awesome.
I'm so glad I got the call, man. I've been waiting months. Months I've been waiting for this call. Like, when's he gonna call me? It's like, oh my God, hey, this is perfect time.
Well, things have to balance out. Like I had one guy from your crew on. I have to like sort of balance it out a little bit.
Thanks for having me, man. Congrats on all the films, man. They're all great. I've seen them all that stuff. So good luck to you with everything, man. It's awesome.
Do you want to shout anybody out on the way?
I just want to shout out to everybody that, either, if I hurt you on the way, if I helped you on the way, my heart's always tried to been in the right place, to do the right thing. And much love to all my boys from Flushing. Sick of it all, guys. Armand, Craig, Lou, Pete, Richie Sip. I mean, there's not enough words for having that foundation of like friendship to build this whole musical, and I'm glad they're doing what they're doing. All that stuff is great. So thanks for all the memories. Thanks for all the, support through the years. And it's good touching base with everybody. I'm glad I didn't burn the bridges bad enough. So hopefully there's no bad vibes on anybody. If there are, more power to you. And then thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I love you, man. And I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, man. Take it easy.
Okay. Well, there you go. That was Rob Echeverria from Helmet and Biohazard and Straight Ahead and Rest in Pieces. And that was a great show. We do great shows around here. We really do. And thank you for supporting it. We will see you on Wednesday. Here you go. Just a real quick reminder. This Wednesday, we have the A7 Back to the New York Hardcore Roots New York Hardcore compilation record release show. We're going to bring a bunch of people on that play on the comp. We're gonna march a whole bunch of people through the show on Wednesday. Of course, don't forget that the link is going up at 3:00 tomorrow for the comp. A week from today is Roy Mayorga. A week after that is Bobby Steele. And then on the Wednesday after that is Al Barr. I want to thank everybody once again. Let me just make sure there's no casualties in the chat room. Yes, Al Barr is coming on. Ryan, good. I'm glad you're going to be here Wednesday. Rabies 55, good interview. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, Paul Stone. Great show again. Legend. Thanks, Drew. Been looking forward to this one. It was great. He was really great. Fantastic. Always nice to connect with an old friend and talk about the stuff that we love talking about. Music history, and New York hardcore folklore. Can we do a pizza show? I've been asked that a bunch of times. Maybe we'll eventually do a pizza. You know what? I should do the pizza show. We should do a pizza show with Hoya. That would be good because me and Hoya are talking about doing a New York Hardcore Chronicles live Smoke and Word podcast mashup show. So maybe that should be the pizza show. Lou Kohler, brother, thank you for stopping by, man. It means a lot to see that you're out there. I really mean that. Michael Gibbons, same with you. Your guitar work and leeway, amazing. And it means a lot that you support the show. It really does. That said, who else am I missing here? Good night, everyone. Everyone, good night. Okay, cool. Well, that said, I will see everybody on Wednesday. Have a good evening, everybody. Until then, till we see you on Wednesday, do good things. And good things will come to you.